Any administrative business, Tina?
Okay. I have the minutes of February 4.
Okay, everyone's had a chance to review those. I'll make a motion that we approve the February 4th minutes as written.
I'll second them.
In a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
In your packet, there was just information about the Kansas Workforce One. There is no action required on that. Let's see what else is in there. Sorry, that's a long document, isn't
It
it?
is.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I didn't print it off.
That's why we didn't print it off here either.
Yeah.
I think that was.
They update that annually.
I don't know if it's annually, but whenever they have a change in, the makeup of that board,
Right.
you know, I don't know that it's every year. Okay. We do have change orders.
Bunch of them,
Yes.
This is page 2, I don't know what page 1 is.
Oh,
Actually, it's
maybe
right
I just-
behind it.
Here's another page 2. Here's a page 1.
Yeah, you want me to?
Probably here then.
Probably
In this
not.
file.
Well, could be.
We'll do those.
Okay.
Good to see you back.
I'm gonna sign it and
Where?
then pass it to whoever.
This is probably one of them.
Might be.
Here's the one, this one goes together.
Okay. They said this will come apart. Oh, they're not stapled, that's what it is.
Yeah, I think that they probably ran out of staples. Our staplers they're really good, and you don't realize it always if there isn't a staple there because
I got an
feels
old
the
time
same.
stapler, and so it always tells me when it's out of staples.
You know it real quick like when you don't have it, don't you?
Yes, I sure do. Morning.
Morning.
is this a modern stapler here?
No,
Oh,
this,
it doesn't look like something I own.
no, but the one I'm talking about, it's real easy to staple, and it sometimes when you're out of staples, you can't tell.
I'm gonna go through these after all we're done, put these back together.
Yeah. I'm sure that we'll be able to figure it out.
Okay. It's gonna be all done when we're done with this way.
So we need to update another signature card. This one's for the payroll account. So if you can sign on one of these greater than boxes. We do have several early checks. We need to pay our first quarter allotments, and those were not put in on payroll or on payday, so those are in here. We have a vehicle that was encumbered from the sheriff's office from 2018 budget, and that's in here.
First one's an EMT rent for February. Ambulance annual transfer fee, $740. Fuel was bid out, $18,228. Payment for the sheriff's department on the 2019 Silverado, $26,590. And soil conservation allotment from Marion County Conservation District, $82.50. And the first quarter allotment, that's to Harvey Marion County CDBO, quarterly budget allotment, $65,000.
Yeah, the total is $65, the quarterly is a quarter of that, yeah.
And the quarterly allotment on the Prairie View budget, $16,250. Quarterly allotment on Marion County Extension, $37,260. First quarter allotment to Marion County Fair, $41,75. And that's it.
While Diane's signing those, we talked about CDDO. I brought copies of the audit from them. One of them's county's, Tina, she told me just send one to you, give one to you. The other ones, if any commissioner wants to look at it, why, extra copy here, so.
Okay, annual audit, CDDO.
Yes. We get 62 behind. Harvey County's 102 or 100. So there's the majority of their funds, and then the rest of it comes from the state.
Doesn't that just look official?
Yeah. I complimented her this morning.
Took the tag off now, it's for game.
Hey,
You gotta leave the tag for it, leave it on there. They're gonna leave it open.
Okay, we do have some salary sheets.
Okay. First one's Laura Allen, interim Marion County attorney, starting pay of $45.87. Salary change for Larry Larson, 1 year raise as paramedic, $15.25 to $15.50. Salary change, Robert Hewlett, part-time to full-time paramedic. 6-month raise, $15.
That's just, he's moving from part-time to full-time.
Right.
And so that's establishing his beginning wage at $15.
Anthony Wyatt, part-time to full-time EMT. 6-month and 1-month raise, $12. Linda Rutherford, new part-time EMT, $12. Everybody signed those.
Okay, and really the only other thing that I had for administrative was, we probably should have a discussion about what you would like the procedure to be if we need a decision about closing for inclement weather.
I know that arose last week, mostly due to inability to get the sidewalks melted off, and trying to keep people from coming in and falling down, so. Any thoughts from the commission on how we should pursue that?
That's pretty interesting, because people wouldn't know that it's closed until they got out of their car and walked up the steps and the door's locked. And they're
Well,
already at risk.
we would post that on the news media, just like they do school closings and other types of
Social
closings.
media, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it is, public safety is involved when it comes to storms like that.
We just need, I don't foresee that would happen very often. We haven't closed in a really long time for weather. We used to do it more often when we had more bad weather. And at that time, the county clerk would check with the board, but we can't check with all of you and not, outside of a meeting,
Right.
and have a decision from the board as a whole. So, the only way to do that would be to designate one of you to be the one to make the decision. Or I don't know if you have other ideas.
Well, I guess I'd like to hear just, an ice storm, is that grounds? Is that grounds enough to shut things down? Is a heavy snowstorm coming in, blizzard coming in, there's a couple things that, I don't know what all the situations are gonna be, but at the middle of the afternoon, if we know that it's just getting snowing 3-4 inches an hour or so, or less, or more, I'd like to just discuss what possibilities of when we're gonna shut down.
And I think that whatever, if you would make a decision to shut down, typically I would be the one to contact, I usually contact the sheriff's department and ask them about the road conditions. I would also contact the judicial department because they may have court things scheduled. There's a lot of moving pieces to
Right,
it.
right.
And I would say that if we are gonna close, we need to have that information out, because I would have to notify departments.
Mhm.
That would have to be a decision by 6:30 in the morning, I think, to be able to make it where people haven't already started driving.
I know, like last week, you really didn't know how bad the sidewalks and things were until you got here.
No.
True.
We just made that work. There were very few people that came out that day.
Right.
But we just barricaded off the two entrances with the stairways, and we focused on the basement entrances and getting those cleared first. And then later in the day, as we could get to it, then we did the others. So.
I have no problem with the chairman being the person called between the chairman and you. How does you and the judge operate then?
I communicate with Jan Helmer, the
Directly.
clerk of the district
Okay.
court, yeah.
Because we shut it and then they've still got court going on.
Right, that doesn't work.
I know that was the issue the other day too.
Yeah, I did check with them, and they had one thing scheduled. They weren't sure if it was gonna hold or not because of the weather, and they had attorneys driving from out of town. But if we collaborate, and if I am in contact with them early enough, then, we can make that decision, and they could, if they feel that it's a good idea to cancel, then they can contact the people they need to contact in a time manner.
Well, I feel like just to keep it streamlined, if the county clerk coordinates with the chairman, whoever that be, that would suffice, as long as we can do it by, like you said, at a time early enough to.
And then we could get it posted on all the news media outlets, the KWCH and all of the ones where they post the church closings and school closings and
Right.
all of that.
I have no problem with that.
Do I want to make that into a motion?
I would, and make that motion that the chairman be the coordinator with the county clerk to, when the building needs to be shut down for some reason.
Inclement weather, right? We're talking about weather.
Well, it could be anything though. What happens if we don't have no power or nothing here, even though we do have a generator now? But we didn't have power before. We've shut down before we had the generator.
And then also, one other, I don't want to interrupt your motion.
That's all right.
One other thing about when we have inclement weather, often the state will close, which is the case at this time. And so then we have limited services that we can offer here because the state is closed.
Yes.
So we cannot offer driver's license services on those days. So, they may be here and operational, but people may not be able to do everything that they need to do.
Really just driver's license, is that where you narrow it down to?
Yeah, most of the time. There
As
may
far
be
as
a
state
few other
services?
things. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that the chairman and the county clerk would coordinate that, but
So may I read what I wrote? Can you, or would you like to restate your motion?
okay. The chairman and the county clerk be the two coordinators of whether the building shuts down for any reason.
Inclement weather or emergency situations.
Okay, inclement weather or any situation, or emergency situation.
And in the absence of the chairman, the co-chairman would take over?
Yep. That'd be all of that motion.
Okay.
Because he may, with you being out there, or, well, you either one, I don't know if your telephones.
Yeah, we might be out, if we're out in
But
the area or something and you don't have service, why?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody understand the motion?
I understand, I'll second it.
Okay, so we moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That'll make things a little easier.
What?
Yeah. I said, are you having a hard time hearing?
Yeah. Come out about.
You can move a little closer if you'd like, Henry.
You
Try to
guys don't wanna look at me that
Try to
close.
speak up, we'll try to speak up a little more.
See that nice soft chair up there? See that
Okay,
nice
that's all
soft
I
chair?
got. I do have three more departments, employee evaluations, whenever you have time in the next couple of meetings to look those over in an
Okay.
executive session.
Okay, moving on, Jesse?
Good morning.
Morning, Jesse.
Oh, another one of them ballots.
Yeah, 2018 reports for
Bridge.
you to keep. And you do whatever you want with the old one. Okay.
Is that the bridge inspection report?
Yes,
Thanks.
every 2 years. Salary change for 6-month raise for Fred Philpott, equipment operator.
Okay, Fred Philpott, 6-month raise, equipment operator 1. 2267 to 2310.
On the road report, Jesse, how many more brush criticals? Did you
Yeah.
put any more on?
There hasn't been any added.
Yeah.
Wanting to discuss that letter I had you read 2 weeks ago with the Emery Sap and Son as far as that, crushed concrete possibilities. I'm meeting with them Thursday, they're coming in. One location I have them wanting to look at is, the Ramona lot, which is about 7 miles for them to travel from 77 to Ramona. Emery Sap, they're working with Burkamp Construction. Burkamp will be the one crushing the concrete. And they kind of like to have a one-stop shop to keep everything, their costs cheap, as well as if we get it, it'd be cheaper as well. So, I told them I can't give you three much answers if I don't really have prices on things. Burkamp told me it's gonna be around $7 to $8 a ton for crushing. What they had said was it's gonna be about $25,000 or 25,000 ton of crushed concrete. And I am discussing gradations as far as that goes with Burkamp and a few other people. I think I would like to use it as a base rock than a top gravel. The only price I don't have that I want to talk to them about yet, and we have to look at the site, is possibly the haul route, or the hauling from 77 to Ramona. So there would be probably an additional cost there. I'm not for certain on that, but I can't come up with anything closer.
Are they crushing on site?
No, they have talked to landowners, and one landowner has reached out to me, but I think Emery is wanting to kind of avoid that because they're wanting money
For to use this?
to
ground?
use it. That landowner also talked to me, you know, if they had it all done right there, right off the highway on his property, he would like to have 5,000 ton of that crushed concrete once it's all crushed, and we would take the rest, and then have a 3-year time limit of getting it out of off his property. But by talking with Emery, it sounds like they would like to avoid that. So I'm kind of hoping that the haul fee to Ramona would be cheap enough that we could just make one stop there. You know, have the crushing and the hauling done all right in one spot. They need about a 2-acre lot to do that, and we're about a 1.5-acre lot there at Ramona. But that's our biggest lot nearest by that I can think of, or that I know of. Unless
Haven't they used KDOT's lot there on 77 before for some of that?
we have, as long as we get it out there really quick. Now, that's one thing I could talk to KDOT about is, you know, I would just have to figure out a time we just haul like crazy getting 25,000 ton out of there. And I imagine they would allow us to use it if they're not using it during that time frame. But I would have a feeling with this project going on, they're keeping, Emery and everyone else is keeping, using their KDOT lots to keep equipment and whatnot as well. So I could see if there's available room there, but I know that they'll put a time limit on me, a lot quicker one
That would save all the trucking.
it could save a lot of the trucking, so.
Let's go one step further, Jesse. You said use it for base rock.
Mhm.
And that's what I've heard from, I've checked with a couple of people, that you get to using this on top, and with some of the, there is some metal that can come out of it and things, and so, with that many tons, would this be on a gravel rebuild? You would come in and bring the shoulders and then put it down and use it for a base that way?
I think if we were going with the very extensive rebuilds, I'm targeting gravel roads, putting that in the base. They call it soil stabilization, using the dirt and the concrete fines to mesh, to pack together and create a solid base under there. So,
And
being up north.
That's the only problem. If the stockpile being up north, we, you know, yes, we would have to haul it if we're working down south on a rebuild, so,
Well,
you know.
I understand that, I'm just thinking that, you
Yeah.
know, if you used it all up north for a base up there, it could be a few years to use it up. I don't know how big a pile this is gonna be in relationship to the tonnage and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I was hoping if we had it, you know, I don't know how long it'll be before we would get it this year. It could be closer to the end of the year, but I would like to start implementing right away on several roads where we have problems now and just start working it. I mean, like I told you guys before, once this spring hits, you know, if the weather allows us, we're gonna start pulling some shoulders and ditches and try to get some drainage and some crown to these roads. I mean, I was planning on going crazy with this. So with that, not knowing, right now, I'm not expecting this whole stockpile to be here for this year.
When do they start?
I thought they were saying somewhere around June, but by the time they get it all, I don't know how long it takes them to get all this crushed up. And so, I guess I have told them that I am very interested, and I think you three are very interested in the material. We have time yet for us to work on the gradation of how many fines, how big of rocks, stuff like that. I just told them that I cannot give them for sure answers until they look at the spot and also some more costs of like the hauling, if there is gonna be a hauling cost. So, if I'm wrong, I can tell them, but I thought I'd seen some interest out of you three
Yeah.
for this, but I'm sorry, I don't have any more answers. I just need to bring it up so you know what's going on with this.
So does Bird Camp just crush it, or do they crush it kind of the way we want it?
They'll crush it any way we want it, and that's why I'm really trying hard to get the right gradation on this, if we use it for a base rock.
So where would your second alternative be to store it? Because I'm not too sure. What would the savings be, since it's at Burr Camp, to go to Ramona versus maybe somewhere a little more centrally located? Is there a huge difference? I wouldn't think so, but I'm
It's just
asking.
gonna raise the price of the cost no matter where we go as far as the hauling the concrete.
Right, but I'm
Burr-
asking how much.
That I don't know. They're not even giving me quotes of what it would cost, because they're doing everything at cost, so whatever it costs them to drive from 77 to Ramona, they were gonna get that figure for me if they think that place was gonna work. So I don't know what their figures are gonna be on that. You know, as far as other options, yeah, the KDOT, the landowners up there,
Tampa's got, what about Tampa lot?
Tampa's a little further, but that's even smaller than
Oh, it is,
Ramona,
okay.
yeah.
So I guess what my question is, I understand what you're doing there as far as saving on haul route.
Yes.
But you're talking such a small distance. It's not like from one end of the county to the other. If you're going from
Mhm.
Burr Camp to Marion,
Mhm.
or Ramona's a little further north. But that's why I'm wondering about the extra. I mean, is it gonna be extra 20 cents a mile, is it gonna, or a ton?
And that's,
See, to me, that would be the deciding factor. How much extra would it cost so that we could put it at a more convenient place?
and I can talk to them more about that, and that is one issue I've tried talking, they just keep emphasizing close, close, close. I think probably to keep their costs down, but, they're probably trying to look at it in our side of it too, benefiting us to keep the costs down as well. So that is something I will ask them as far as getting it, if we're willing to pay to get it more centrally located for our part, that would be great too.
I'd be
If you guys
interested
are, okay.
if I need a cost.
Yeah, and I've been trying to get that out of them, and they're not even giving me a rough quote. So hopefully Thursday I'll get some more answers with the meeting I have with them.
Would you, and I don't know who owns it or whether it's been reverted back to the landowner, the state lot right there south of Center School, or, yeah, south of Center School along 77 Highway. And the project is north of there somewhere, right?
By Lost Springs, yes.
Lost Springs. Is that ground right across the road to the south of that state lot? Is that reverted back, or does the state own that?
This is all on the west side of the highway?
On the west side of the highway, yeah.
I wouldn't know that.
I'm just wondering if there's, you know, they have their ground there already, and I just wonder if the other side's a possibility to
close to where that lot is?
Where the KDOT lot is
Right,
along the west
right.
side, just, there's a mile line there, I don't know what mile that'd be, 240? No, 300. First mile on the left is
300.
300, and just on the other side of 300 right there, it'd be just across the road, on the same side of the road. I don't know if that ground's been reverted back, but there's a creek that comes down through there too.
Oh,
Bridge.
there used to
Reverted
be an
back.
old road going to the north off
The old
of
highway
310.
went north about a block, a quarter block, half block over there. I don't know if it's been reverted back or what. So I'm just,
I know where you're talking about.
yeah, it's the old Highway 50. which-
Yeah.
Yeah. Or well, old 50.
KDOT has done maintenance in there for the years I've watched, so I'm wondering if that's still there.
They go down in there all the time, and I don't know whether it's theirs or whose it is.
I'll check.
Might check with them, just see if that lot was available to, maybe, that's further south, closer to Lincolnville. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll check with them on that stuff,
Yeah.
so. And there is, they wanted to let me know, Emery and also Burkamp, there is no metal in this. There's dowel bars, but no metal. So,
What's a dowel bar?
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Wouldn't, I'm thinking wood.
No.
Gotta be
You
metal.
sure it's not? Dowel bars, I thought was where they, each one of them seams is where they put them together.
Is it?
Usually it's a rebar stem,
Yeah,
epoxy.
about
Yeah.
inch and a quarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they probably will come out easier to where they can.
So I'm wondering what they meant by no metal was all the way through the.
Yeah.
But there's legs, you know, 1/4-inch legs that hold that up there. And if they're not really up on that magnet when they're crushing, you're gonna have a lot of power trouble.
Yeah.
Cause you're not gonna grind that thing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they're about 18 inches.
So when they crush that, they don't guarantee you there's no metal in it.
No, they don't guarantee that, no. You know, I think smaller companies have one magnet per crusher. I think some of them are running 2 and 3 now per these crushers, but yeah, there's no guarantee that there won't be any metal. So,
I guess we're
Yeah,
just having.
when they put those in, they grease one end of it, every other one. When it's in a joint, they'll grease this one, and the next one they'll grease this one so they can work. But you're sure not gonna grind them.
so I don't know if they're taking them out or what, but, so.
Yeah, I guess I can't give them an answer until we know just exactly what it may be.
I know, I'm the same way.
Okay, but we are interested,
And $7 a ton, and how many? $7 or $8 a ton, and how many tons?
25,000, so it's $7 a ton, 25,000 ton, I think that came up to $175,000. So, I don't know if we'd use our capital improvements or something like that to help out, or,
I just wanna be sure that we can use it, that's all I'm, and I don't wanna get something we can't use.
well, yeah.
But I know a lot of counties are using
Yes,
it.
yes.
As far as, I have not watched the video, I missed last week with, is there anything I need to know from the Harshman Rock Quarry, being here?
Yes, I do have something I wanted to ask you. One of the things is, they have agreed to test all their rock.
Okay,
Because a lot of their rock that they had, well, most of the rock that we're using from them doesn't meet state testing as far as the thaw freeze, or the freeze-thaw test, for one
Mhm.
thing. And they don't even test for the
Plasticity index.
The plasticity, yes, they don't test for that either. So even on their gradations are very limited as to what they test on, and they have agreed that they would do extensive testing, which I think is something that we need to do to all quarries. We need to have a standard as to what we want to put on our roads, because I think that's one of the moving parts that is the failure in our roads, is by, I understand we gotta save money, and I understand we want cheap, but in this case, cheap is costing us way too much. So they have agreed to do testing. They did call me, I did talk to them after the meeting, as a matter of fact, Sam, and wanted to be there when, because I had said, you know, I wanted to make sure that it was tested. They were very gracious and not problem testing it. And even going forward, I think we need to make sure that all rock is tested, that we use all the quarries. So I don't know, with the weather being as cold as it is, or so, I just left it go, I didn't do any more with it or anything like that. As to when we start the testing or anything, I'd like to do it certainly as soon as possible, for one thing. And then the second thing, I do have a question for you on that, and that is, I had said, and tell me, the Waverly, is that not in, the Waverly Quarry, is that in Coffee County?
Well,
They said it was not.
no, it is, I think on this side, of just a mile or so
In the
west of Coffee County. Rock.
Okay.
line
They
down.
call the rock Coffee County because they make it specifically for Coffee County.
Okay, because they said it was not, and I said, well, geez, I guess Google lied to me. But, I had an invoice here to where we were paying $15.89 for some rock, which is not a problem.
Mhm.
I mean, if it's a better quality rock, which I would assume at that price it certainly is.
Mhm.
Because but that rock is also not tested, so I don't know.
Okay.
And so that would definitely have to be tested at that price to make sure that we're getting a really good quality for $15.89. And where I was gonna go with that was, I can't determine on this invoice that I have here for the rock that we purchased from that quarry,
Mhm.
the haul rate, how they do that. Do they surely they do not haul it to their location down here free, do they?
No.
It's a backhaul.
That $15 is including the haul rate.
Okay, so then
It's
the,
$8.39 per ton for the Coffee County road rock out of Waverly.
okay, 18 how much?
$18.39 per ton.
$8.39.
$8.39 per ton, excuse me.
Okay, $8.39 per ton, and then what, $7.50 a ton to
Yes.
haul? Okay, see, no, I couldn't get that in, because
This year, that was last year, this year they got a trucking company for $7, I think, is what, how that, $7 is what the haul rate was for this year, but last year was $7.50.
Okay. I'll go with that,
But
but I
they
don't
also-
have anything to dispute with, but.
One of the points they brought up, if we need them to and can coordinate, they can haul, if they're backhauls close to a place we can stockpile some, they could do that too. We would just need to coordinate that with them rather than, just bringing it and dumping it at Florence.
But Jesse, I have to ask you on that, because I have had people tell me that sometimes by stockpiling it is sometimes more of a hindrance than if you just have a trucking company come and dump it on the road as you're doing a project. Is that sometimes beneficial or not?
I think it's very beneficial with trucking companies that are specifically looking to do some hauls for us. These companies are usually coming, to keep it low, they're coming through here empty, going to Hutch, and then going back with sand or salt. But,
But in your project, in your working, do you prefer when you're building a road to stop and have your men go load it up in our area and bring it back and forth and make all the trips yourself? Or is it more cost effective just to have, like you have been doing now, calling the rock company and have them deliver it and spread it?
it's been very nice, having Everett and JL do that. If they can knock out a lot of miles real quick with, the only reason I hadn't been doing the Waverly rock with another JL, I've been trying to keep the cost down just because of the, we're at $8.39 per ton plus the haul rate. Then if I go and throw another 7 at it or whatever from JL, then there's a second hauling fee to haul it, So, and I know what you're saying, coming from the quarry, wherever it may be, to haul straight to our road or our project. But a lot of those companies aren't wanting to necessarily do that when they're just wanting to dump and get straight to what their objective is.
A lot of these backhauls are in dumps too, and they don't spread so good, the long ones. But are you using the long end dumps?
Everett keeps switching up from some short end dumps, but
Okay.
right now, as much tonnage as we're putting on, I think they're sticking with the belly dumps right now, so it just lays out a lot easier and nicer. They can just keep on going, so.
And I wouldn't dispute a couple cents, I'm not gonna go down and lose that far, but I was just told that sometimes, to load it and dump it, and then to go load it and dump it again, you're kind of
And there's
chasing your
more
own
wear.
tail, and there's more wear, yeah, yeah.
There's more wear, and I'm
Right,
fully
that-
aware of
that
that.
maybe that is just not really a cost-effective way to do things, and maybe some, in some cases, yes, but maybe not as an end-all,
Mhm.
have it all stockpiled.
Yeah, and right now, like we keep talking, it's just 7,500 ton over there at Florence. I'd like to get, well, and like, I'm working with Hartford, APAC with Hartford right now. They got some really good quality rock. But right now, I'm not having luck with some trucking companies right now, so. Cheapest thing I found and they've found is $14 for haul rate, so. And that is, to answer your question, Hartford, these companies, I'm kind of wanting to hit some eastern end stuff just because they're right there. I'm kind of hoping they can haul right on the road for me and on some places right off the highway. But I'm not having a lot of luck, but I'm still trying to work on that with some trucking companies out east. To make just the one haul. I mean, that makes sense. The only thing I've been with, the Waverly stuff, just having two haul charges on one load of, one load of rock, so that's why we've been hauling our stuff. And they're not charging me to load it with their loader, so,
Is there anything coming in from the west or north, northwest or south?
no.
Nothing's coming in from that side of the county? Everything's coming in from the north and east and south?
Like rock coming in?
Yeah.
It's coming in from, the Florence or out east right now, or sand out of Wichita.
Stand up.
So it would be the east and south is, then, I checked on sand up north, and the cheapest I've found is $9.50 a ton for sand, when I'm getting it at $4.40 a ton down south.
But how much are we spending there in haul then too?
Well, right now, Kevin Robinson is the only one that stockpiles us at our shop. So he's usually around $6 for a backhaul.
So $6 plus the $3.90,
Plus
Plus
the
the
four, let's
$3.90
just
for
say
the sand.
$4.10 for a ton.
$4.10 for a
Yeah.
ton. So then we're actually paying $10.10 for
Correct.
sand that you're spending up there would be $9 plus the haul. But the haul would be less. Oh, you said 6, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I have it hauled in from like up north,
Yeah.
$9.50 was the tonnage per
sand.
ton for sand, and then if I throw whatever trucking company,
$6 to $10 a ton?
is what the whole, even backhauls are usually somewhere around $6 or a little bit more.
I think that's kind of just the nature of the beast.
I know.
I mean, really, I hate to spend a whole bunch of time beating that horse because it just is never ending. I'm just more worried about the quality that we're buying.
Correct.
I'm not gonna nitpick on the price too much, just so long as we're getting quality for what we're buying.
Correct, and even looking at, I think, better quality, I think the prices are kind of staying pretty comparable. It's just the extra with the haul. That's, and that's what I'm worried about is our budget is of running out of rock money. And I know you guys had said something about either equipment or capital improvements, because I think the way we're going and what I have plans for to keep doing this, throughout this spring and summer, we're gonna have to steal from something, to make it through the whole year.
So, and I also noticed, like, when you buy rock from Harrington, I'm not too sure that would be good rock to buy from either. I mean, I think we definitely need to have that tested. I don't have a test on that one. I do like the Woodbine test results, but Harrington, I think, even though that's kind of under Woodbine, Woodbine's low grade rock, if I'm not mistaken. So,
No, and I tried it. I'm not a big fan of it right now.
I wouldn't be either, just by the numbers I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just like the numbers I see from Woodbine.
And are they, am I reaching out to them to get the testing, or are they gonna be, or how's that?
Woodbine?
No,
They just
anybody.
They automatically test.
Okay, but like even Harshman, are they just gonna start giving me some reports on the test?
We haven't
Okay.
discussed that exactly how we're gonna do it, they just agreed it, and I think even on the rock, we need to do it more than once a year, we have to set up a regular, I don't know whether it be quarterly or whatever, on all the quarries, or, I don't know what the reasonable time is.
Okay.
But I know they go with different ledges and things like that, so,
Yeah, they keep
and I
it
just
the-
think, even as I read into different things on, interesting, as I was reading into applications and things on, engineers, that's one of the qualifications, that they regularly keep up on the testing and stuff, on
Okay.
materials and stuff, so that's an important factor. But we didn't discuss it,
Okay.
so, and I.
They just,
Yeah,
they just agreed, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would need to specify, we need it
Okay.
more than once a year, or when they change mining operations to a different location or whatever.
I wouldn't wanna buy any rock that does not have a test
Okay.
and has it to meet our standards, and that's the first thing. Do you have a standard for what you buy?
No, I don't
We
have.
need to get that,
Okay.
yeah. So, I mean, how can we take tests if we don't even know what our standards are?
Okay.
So, and I would think our standards would be at least with KDOT, and actually I would be happy if it'd be a little bit above. But if that's not possible, KDOT standards are fine with me,
You have to have somewhere to start, paid up from.
and not at the bottom.
Okay.
But we tried Woodbine, Diane, and I've seen a lot of fines in that stuff, and it was all broke up that day that I seen it, but
You know, and I understand, and I know he had a bucket that he took to you and so on and so
Yeah.
forth, but that was crazy the way that was done, because, you know, I've talked to a million people, and whether it be engineers and other counties and stuff, and it's just fascinating to me how all the other counties buy from Woodbine, and they all say they need those fines, and that's a lot of your continuity there, is those fines.
You do have to have.
You do have, yeah, go ahead, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I
You
mean-
do have to have the fines, yes, and Jeff is right, and so you have to have those, and sometimes, I think we're,
it was.
you know, I think we need to have expertise in telling us exactly what we need with that, because I know,
I think I'll just drive up and get me a bucket and see what they got up there. That'd be the best way for me.
and
to
they
do
have
it.
a whole bunch of piles for you to choose from.
Yeah,
And they can test and do whatever you want there too, and they're willing to do it, and this is one of the reasons I keep pushing Woodbine more than I see anybody else, is because they give us free rock, they want us to test this rock, they've, from the start, been wanting to, you know, provide us quality rock. They adjust the price, they give us volume discounts, I mean, on and on and on and on, and I find that to be impressive. I like to do business with companies like that. And haul rate too, like I always say, you know, go from the north to the middle. I'm perfectly happy with the northern part of the county, since most of that will be my district anyway. Take it there, I'm happy with it, save the county some money, we don't have to haul from one end of the county to the other. So we save money there. So,
Okay.
okay.
All right. I just thought I'd ask.
Anything else?
Nope, that'd be it.
I have one other subject to talk to you, and that is, the wind companies
Okay.
up north. The violations, the trucks going on off-haul routes, seems to be a rash going on.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of really disturbed with that. It seems to me as though, and it's just my perception here, it just seems to me like, res is like, don't even care anymore. Because when you get 4 and 5 violations in 1 week, or give or take, that's ridiculous.
Something's going on.
And, yeah, it is. And, I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. I don't know if it's an attitude problem. I don't know if there's a problem that we don't know what it is, and maybe we need to talk to them and find out what the problem is. But the situation to me is unacceptable.
is this their pickups or bigger trucks?
It's
Big
the
trucks.
trucks,
Big trucks.
big trucks.
I don't think evidently they've been coordinating very well, because, you know, the trucks that are coming in now, a lot of them have never been here. They're hauling out stuff that's being torn down.
I see.
And they just say they need to get to a certain location, and they turn off a mile too
Yeah,
soon and
okay.
get stuck, and,
Well, you
I
know
know
what?
on the last
I mean, it seems like
communication,
Pardon me?
they ought to be coordinating, saying, here are exact coordinates.
I was just gonna say, on the last communication from Pat Hughes to the company, where he was saying this fine is now due, and then he did use some pretty strong language in there as
He
far
said
as,
it wasn't paid.
hey, this is no, I mean, it seems like you're just saying we're gonna pay it and just violate the agreement, and that's not okay, basically, is what he was told.
And even though it's not okay, and I think when we had our meeting, we made it clear to them, we have an agreement. And so they need to be abiding by it. So if the breakdown is in communication, or the breakdown is, I don't care where the breakdown is, I don't like it.
The one man sitting right over there said, call him.
Whoever he was. I don't remember who he was.
Yeah,
Or something, was it John?
yeah, that was
John was-
Steve.
Steve.
That was
And that,
Steve.
And I
that's
bet,
one
and
thing
I'm
I
sure
was,
he's going.
I was gonna ask, or that's what I was gonna get on the phone with this week was, I need to find out if anyone's replying back to Tanner, like, or even our attorney, Paul, or what's
Pat.
Pat. If anyone's, because I'm not seeing any of the replies back. Now, I haven't been replying to all when I get it, but I'm seeing Pat's responses, but I'm not seeing anything come back from Steve or John Beck. So that was going to be one of my questions this week to Tanner and possibly Pat. Find out what's going on there and see. I do know that there's still an outstanding bill of $25,000 that we still want them to pay us for that rock out on the East Lincolnville Road on 290th.
And they're
I'm not-
blowing you off on that.
And
They're
the-
totally blowing you off. They're not even responding.
Yeah, see, and that's what I don't even know if they're responding to all the truck violations of last week. So I need to find out what's going on, and I was gonna do that this week here, so.
So I was gonna ask you though, on that $25,000, and this is just a thought, I don't know if this has any, I don't accept it even if it is. But I noticed, well, it was kind of surprised me, but I noticed that the rock that we put on that road that we're asking them to buy, or pay for,
Mhm.
reimburse us for, was purchased from Burkamp.
Yes.
And Burkamp was the quarry that they contracted at first, and then realized that the rock was not meeting up to their standards, and so they stopped. So now we're asking them to pay us for that same quality. Do you feel as though that's I mean, it's not a reason that I would accept, but do you think that's, or do you think they're just being arrogant? What do you think it is?
I
mean,
just
there's a
think they're
reason.
trying to avoid us.
Okay.
I just don't, we did that at the same time they thought the rock was good too, and we were actually giving it a try, and it was all right there. We had the road right there, we had the quarry right there, we gave it a whirl. And
See, this is
we're not
what-
hauling out of there anymore, so, and neither are they. But I just think they're trying to ignore that bill, because they really didn't want that road as a haul route anyways, so.
And once they know we're not gonna shut them down, why bother? See, we're actually, with these agreements and things that we have with them, these contracts, I was told a long time ago, contracts are made to be broken.
Well,
And it happens all the time,
And don't think that we're the first ones to go through where we have to
Sure
battle
we're not.
the wind farm after they leave,
I'm sure we're not. But that's what we would wanna strive for, because we don't
Correct.
wanna do that.
And then the general manager walk out with a copy of the invoice
Yes,
and
he
say
did.
they're in, that's what
Yes,
I
he
did.
did.
It was in his hand.
So I wanna find out why they're not replying, if they're not, and we
Well,
need,
did you get a check?
no.
Has
We
Pat,
have-
has Pat
So they're not
corresponded to
compliant.
them about that,
What's that?
that invoice, has he corresponded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he has.
So maybe we need to find a plan B.
Or C.
I think I'm already thinking about a plan B. So, okay, I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure that we're all
Yeah,
knowing that,
it was
that we're being.
concerned me, I got one late Friday of another violation, so I was like, well, this week we're gonna find
And then
out.
there was two, was it in one day, or was
Yeah, I
it
think,
in,
yeah, there was two in one day, and then there's
and
one
one
late
day
Friday.
prior?
Yeah, there's 4 or 5.
I mean, it's
last
just like,
thing. So,
Well, if we're the bad guys that everybody says we are, then why don't we just make a motion to just shut it down
I
until
would
they
go
pay
for
us?
that. I would,
How
I
would
mean,
we
we
go
were
about it,
labeled
though?
that way, we might as well deserve it.
How would we go about it though? I mean,
I don't know.
that's, we can make a motion, do everything, but just to shut it down would be.
you have to have something like, that they are not complying with, which we already have that
The
now.
road maintenance agreement.
Correct. So that is the CUP, and as far as the agreement goes, you three, and I think even myself included, or something, we could shut that down, the CUP, and that stops all production of anything. So,
I think we need to look at it
I
down the
think
road,
we
we
need
just
to-
don't start getting some cooperation.
I think we need to
Well,
act quick and find
I
out
think-
what the answers
Yeah,
are.
I think we're already down the road. I mean, how much further do we need to go? How
Well-
much more damage, how much more?
I ain't talking a month down the road, I'm thinking we need to get some answers this week.
I think so too. I mean, because, like I said, just the attitude and the arrogance of it all.
Can you conference with Pat and
I can start with Tanner and see what he says, and
maybe get everybody involved?
I'll talk with them and see what angle they wanna go at. They may be even contacting you for
Actually, I
Tanner.
think the angle would be right here.
Like I said, I'll talk with Tanner, and I think the best thing is he probably talks to you three, or get some communication with you three, to find out. What you guys wanna do.
Might let him know the motion's in the air, maybe.
Okay.
Can I make a comment? I'd like to I guess them straight trucks we got last ice storm, I think they did a lot of good, didn't they? I mean,
The what?
the state trucks that we bought,
Yes.
I see them running all over the place. I think it's a great deal. And when we had that ice storm last week, I noticed around the curves and stuff, they put sand and salt.
I would, thank you for bringing, I would like to make a comment about that. The state trucks have been a good buy. We are covering sand better on the roads than we have in the past with one old rinky-dink thing. And we're covering the whole county at a quicker rate of time than we ever have. And we're still concentrating on curves and intersections. But with this kind of spreaders and stuff, I am about out of dry sand for the winter. And it's just something to think about in the future. You know, it's been a rough winter, but yet I think we've had rougher ones before. And I've been real stingy lately on how much sand or how long we go out or something, just because I'm about out of dry sand, and wet sand, it just freezes in there and I can't get it spread. So that's another issue as far as, see, what we do during the summers is lay sand out of the strip, at the south shop, lay sand out, and we keep turning it back and forth for a whole week. It usually takes 5 to 7 days. Keep turning it in the hot sun and keep drying it, scoop it up and haul it indoors at our shop location in town. And we only have a limited area where we keep it indoors. So we can't stockpile that much, but that's what we do during the summers. And so just something to kind of keep in mind. I don't have any bunkers or any kind of shelter for materials. And
I think you just heard it right here, and I've seen it too. What Tom said is that we are covering the roads and things, and as long as I remember there's no salt there, because you can go to salt, you go up to another game. But I think that we've accomplished what we've set out to do with the trucks, is to get the county covered and get some sand out there. So you gotta have dry sand to work in them, so that requires a bunker. That's just all there is to it. And you do it in the summertime, you get yourself ready for the winter. So look around, let us know what's available in bunkers.
You know, KDOT has those, they have those covered bunkers.
Yeah.
Maybe you could get some information.
well, we did, and I priced those around, you know, brand new bunker like that, those concrete blocks and the roof, about $20,000.
Yeah, we need to do it for next year. As far as I'm concerned.
I mean, you're gonna have dry sand, so.
Jesse, can you tell me, I know are you still hauling rock from Everett? Are they still doing that? I know they were backlogged for a period of time. Are they still doing that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you know right off the top of your head, and I know you probably might have to go look, but do you know, do they have 290th from 77 going east on that?
They do not. I'm trying to get them caught up on the 12 or 13 miles I gave them, and when they're getting ready to get closer, I'm going to add to their list. That's the first place, was 290th going east of Lincolnville, actually.
Because I didn't, that
Yes.
particular road has been,
And I was hoping that they would be closer, and they might be closer by the end of this week to maybe, but yeah, I was going to get that list to them this
Okay.
week, Monday
Okay.
through Wednesday here.
okay, I
Just
said I would
finding out.
follow up and get some answers,
Yes.
okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, everyone.
Bud out here.
Hey, Bud,
Hey, morning.
how are you?
First thing on my agenda this morning is they need a color of the building. They forgot to do that the other day.
Then you what?
And there's a color, what color you want the building.
Oh,
I have some colors here that's,
Is all three of these the same?
yeah, they're all the same. And if you want to give one what they're wanting is color for the inside of the shop walls, outside walls, roof wall, and trim if you want different colors.
I don't know. The one I need is
I checked with city and there's no guidelines on what colors we can put. I just prefer not to have fluorescent orange or anything bright like that. I said I really wouldn't want that next to my house anyway, so.
Even that red would be,
Yeah. Kind of was thinking just myself, like the brownstone or the almond, put Snow White on the inside of the shop area to lighten it up, you know, 'cause we have it, yeah. I told him we could have, I asked the engineer, I said, can we have it all the same color? Don't have to have a roof color and a wall color and a trim color. Can we have everything the same color? That way, unless you guys want different colors, you know, and he said he didn't see why we couldn't, so, you know. But if you wanna go with different colors, that's, you tell me and I'll get back with them because they need to get their building open, so.
Wouldn't the lighter colors be better for, well, in the summertime, absorbing heat, and
Right,
of course the inside being light would add a little bit of light to the
right,
interior.
right.
so what would a building look like that's all one solid color?
Like a farm building.
I
Well,
kinda like, if it's no big deal, what difference does it make what color is at the end of the brush? I kinda think the roof and the building should be a different color.
Okay,
Just
that's
my-
fine. Yeah,
Just my,
this is your
thought.
guys' decision,
Yeah,
that's
I-
fine. I'm just voicing my opinion, you know, so, and you can take it.
You're a citizen and you may have a color that you don't like.
Means I live next to
Maybe
it.
you live right there too.
Pretty close? It doesn't matter to me. These are the only colors that's available, so,
well, I like the white inside, the brightness.
right.
You talk about Snow White on the interior or the almond?
Well, I was thinking Snow White on the interior.
Gentlemen?
Your comment about summertime reflective properties, non-heat building. I know you got heat built into your building. You don't really have much AC built into it. So, yeah, you probably want to think more on economical terms of summertime. Because you figured out something for winter. So, I don't know, white seems to do good on the roof.
Reflective.
Yeah.
So you're saying white on the roof
White on the roof usually,
would be best for like summer, you know, for,
and then your sides and your trim or whatever is appealing.
Yeah.
I think white on the roof with the brownstone would be would be nice, or whatever else you want to do on it there.
Brownstone, you mean on the sides? I really don't have a, other than, you know, red, I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
You think, Randy?
I think the blue seems to fade quite a bit. I like blue, but it seems to fade a lot.
Well, you'd probably get some of that with, also with that green also, wouldn't you?
Some of the green, yes.
And I think the red and the blue and the green is kind of, it's stark, you know, it's just like, as you
Yeah.
drive down the road, it's gonna jump at you.
I think stay away from the dark.
The almond would reflect more than even brownstone, even though the brownstone, I don't know how dark a thick piece gets when you see the whole piece. Most, your light tan buildings or your lighter colors is that almond color. It don't make no difference to me.
Diane said she likes the brownstone and the white.
You have a little bit of a contrast there, so it don't kind of blend into one mushy thing.
To do that, then when it looks ugly, I know who to blame.
Do you want a trim color?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I have no difference.
Just have everything white on the roof and then white, the brownstone on the bottom, on the sides. Put the Snow White on the inside of the,
All right?
all right. I'll pass that on to them.
Because I don't even see a trim color that would go good with that
You probably want it trimmed.
brownstone.
A what?
You probably want it trimmed, especially around your doors.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
it just accentuates where you want your truckers to drive through.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have trim on
Just,
it.
you're gonna have a garage door, but
So do you
Yeah.
want a different color for the
you
trim?
still want park here.
Then I
Trim-
guess
you
the
can
almond
trim
would
the
be a
color.
good trim color, maybe. If you want to go with that, blend that almond in there for the trim.
That would be the three
Yeah.
lightest colors.
Because the gray, the bronze, I mean, that's just, you're gonna clash. You don't
Go
want
with
flash
almond
to
for
be
the trim. Okay.
They'll fight with each other, I've heard that, the colors will fight with each other.
Well,
I don't want them to fight.
That's why when we do colors at home, the wife picks the colors, I put them on. Okay, so you want the roof white, inside white, brownstone walls and almond trim.
Got it.
Got it? Okay. And then here is a change order for this is the copy that needs signed. For top one, yeah. Okay. And the other two go. What this does is on the inside of the shop walls, instead of going all the way up to the ceiling with them, with the closing at the end, they're changing the insulation on it from the batting to what it says, and then they'll have plywood 8 foot up and then metal on top of the plywood, and that will be no extra cost, they say,
Okay.
to do that.
So this is a change order with no additional cost.
Right.
In regards to metal building insulation to the walls in lieu of the vat insulation, which would provide a better thermal envelope and a cleaner look to the building. And then have added an 8-foot tall liner panel with blocking to allow fastening to the wall. Someone want to make a motion to accept that change order?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the change order as written.
Okay. I'll go ahead and second that. Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. And so do I need to sign this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure Tina will need a copy of it.
Yes.
And then, another thing we have is they found some contaminated soil and footings in the project. Valley sent me this. They will be here next week to discuss stuff with you. They couldn't make it this week. And, Brad,
Send that.
there's one for you, Brad.
You had no clue there were footings out there?
No, I do not know what's in the ground around that place. I really don't.
What we can do about that, we're gonna have to look for some tall ceilings somewhere else.
Right. It was my understanding, and I don't know if this is true or not, but if some of it that was removed might be able to come out of the second phase. You know, what was gonna have to be done there. I don't know how far they went when they did it, but.
So when it comes to contaminated soil, do you have to haul it anywhere special, or would you
No.
just spread it out?
I'm waiting for them to say what it's contaminated with, and we can spread it out and use it as fill in the second phase. Because usually all you have to do is let it air out for 10 days, and then you can reuse it. But they are having geotech do the testing on the soil to see what it's contaminated. It smells like diesel. I'm not an expert, so.
Geotech does that for surveyors.
They're also,
They test ground too? I didn't know that.
I guess, that's what they were telling me.
Terracon does compaction, so.
Yeah. These are the guys that came and geotech did the drilling before we started, you know.
So do we have any clue how much that's gonna involve, how much material that's gonna involve?
Well, it's a foot underneath, you know.
But we don't know how deep?
I believe they're as deep as they're going to go, so, and I think they have to refill with a foot and compact it. And and then go from there.
The edge of the building that, the shop building is on some of this compacted soil too? Or
The shop, or you mean?
it's on the contaminated fuel ground?
Correct. That's where they found the contaminated ground, is where they were digging out for this. So, on the slope going to the west, they have to take that down to get it level. That's where they found the contaminated ground.
Well, I'm guessing they're gonna find contaminated soil all the way through the end of the next phase.
More than likely. Back in the 1900s, they had no such thing as,
Dumping on the ground?
yeah.
Goes to show you how good the permitting process needs to be. That way there's records of things and why things are in places.
Anyway, they said that they would make it down here next week just to discuss more
They'll
with you.
have some answers?
More of what's going on and stuff. And I just needed to get that to you and let you be aware that it was going on.
Is there any action that we need to take as a commission to approve that?
Sorry, we're back on colors over here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the colors here.
Carl's got it.
We-
I
Thank
never
you.
heard what gauge steel this is on the building.
In the plan.
120, yeah, it's in the plan. This paint's available for 24, 26 gauge.
What are you gonna get?
I don't know what they've got. It's on the plans, I can't remember.
26 is light.
Probably goes back to the spec though, on the bid spec.
Yeah,
They're gonna bid the cheapest thing.
that's what I was
Bid
wondering,
spec.
what they did.
Yeah, I don't have my plans with me on what gauge it is.
Is that 25-year paint or 50-year?
Okay, so,
This one don't say.
Nope, that's the only thing it says.
Oh, is it back on the color?
we're back on the color?
So,
He's gonna start with the color.
you were asking
I was
about
just
whether we needed
showing
anything with this?
Well, we need to approve that.
I think that once you approve your project, any changes should have a change order accompanying it. So this should have a change order.
Yeah,
And then the
they're
two
having
things-
it next
Yeah.
week, yeah.
Okay, and then the two things that that you all changed last week should also have
Right,
change orders.
Right.
Right,
Okay.
so I got a hold of them, and
Okay.
they're doing everything, and I told them I want change orders
Okay.
before
We'll
I come
approve
to
them when we see
anybody,
the change
but
orders.
this was something that, he wanted to be here today, but he couldn't make it, so he's said he would be here next week.
Okay,
With
so I
that.
think that
Yes.
they take the official action when we get the change orders.
Right, right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I wanna go back on the colors if we're done with that.
Mhm.
So I'm just wondering here, that almond is just so ugly. I'm sorry, the almond color is just too ugly.
For
So I-
trim?
Yeah, for anything. So I'm just wondering if we could do the brown for the building and then gray for the roof and white for the trim. I mean, it would look more like this. See, that kinda, it's not too shabby.
First three right across the top there.
Would gray be a
Top
heat
left,
absorbing
three.
color?
Yeah, typically, but
Is it that much different than
typically you're not gonna see your roof. I mean, you gotta get quite a ways back from the building to see the roof, so.
Well, we're gonna have a pretty good pitch on this roof.
Is it a E412?
The other thing that I'm gonna say is you're gonna have a lot of dirt. That rock road around there is gonna be dirty, and that's where your travel is, and you're gonna have a lot of dust.
So the gray's gonna end up being white anyway.
Well, I'm just thinking about what it's,
the white's gonna end up being gray?
yeah.
Or if we just eliminate the almond.
Yeah, the almond's ugly.
And use what color for the trim then?
Well, I guess if you can't use
Use
the
a
gray
white.
for the roof, we could use white for the roof and use gray for the trim.
Or just do two colors and not have the gray, just do the brown and white.
With the trim in white.
Roof and white, trim and white, inside white, and then body color of the building brown. I don't know, that's,
I want white.
You
But
sure you get it down right?
I'm eliminating what I have written down.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there really a substantial savings from that gray to that white, do you think? Seriously?
All I know is it's just typical to go white. I mean, gray maybe, depends if there's any reflective property in the gray. You know, if it's got a little metallic flake, it's gonna reflect better than the white then. So,
If that's something we don't know.
if you're talking about a flat gray, then, no, it's
Typically,
gonna,
on the
it's
other
gonna
way, we
absorb some more of
probably,
the
we
white.
could probably expect more of a flat color, I would think.
So do we have to have a decision today on that? Can we have a day or two on that? Do we
Well,
have to
they need to order
They need to
the
buy
bill.
the paint today.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
Well,
And they apologized for letting that slip.
so many people have gray roofs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
But just the steel itself is gonna be a cooler property anyway, for over your gray roof shingle. So,
Yeah. I got gray on my house.
yeah.
I don't have a problem
like-
either way.
The light gray is close enough to white, I don't know how much you can notice.
Yeah, I don't know either. I
Just-
mean, it's not a dark
Yeah.
gray, but it doesn't matter to me if we just go with two or if we go with the gray. Either way.
What's your motion, Diane? What are you gonna do now?
Did
Well,
we
I
have
guess
any-
at the risk of costing some, I go with gray on the roof and the white trim and then the brown building is what would be my number one choice.
With that, didn't we have a motion already?
Yeah, you voted, but that doesn't mean you can't vote again and
We
change
can-
it.
We're gonna have to have someone rescind. the
No,
motion.
you
You
can't
just do the
rescind the
supersede.
motion. Yeah, you would just do a new one
Mhm.
to supersede the previous.
Okay, someone speak up, because I've got no problem with it either way.
Okay, well then I'll go ahead and supersede the other motion, and I'm gonna make a motion that the roof be gray, the body of the building be brown stone, and the trim be white. Based on just a few selections of color that we have, that's about the best I think we can come up with. That would be my motion.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll get them told, and thank you very much.
Let's move on, let's get out of this building stuff.
Yeah,
That's all I have, unless you guys have anything.
thank you, Bud.
Yeah.
Okay, is Isaac out here?
Tina, are you gonna send that change order to them, and you want me to?
I would glad for you to do it. I just need to make a copy.
I can do that.
You're supposed to designate a color picking committee, that's all been taken care of.
That is very important though, you know, the color is very,
It
one of
is.
the most
It's gonna be there
important
forever.
decisions. That's right.
Mine's black.
Your roof
Us
is
us
white.
guys are kind of
I
black and
like
white.
it. I mean, it's-
Ladies are
It
more
looks
color.
kind of neat. It's probably not great for in the summer, but.
Morning, Isaac. Go ahead.
All right.
As soon as Tina gets here,
We'll wait for Tina
Okay.
for a second.
Whoops. Control? Okay.
Okay, you ready, Isaac?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
I just got a couple of smaller things today. The one, I was approached by a high school student, who would have been early last week, who asked me about the potential of doing, they call it a job shadow or work study, this semester. He said that he'd be out two times a week for about a little over an hour, from next week, starting next week until the first week of May. And then he'd be done with that.
is he over 16?
He is. He's 18. He's a senior in high school this year. And I told him, you know, I would talk to you guys and get back to him. I think he said he has until Friday of this week to figure something out. But I talked to Tina about it. She said it was brought up in the past and that the board recommended him come and talk. You know, I don't know if there's any paperwork or anything we'd have to fill out. But I type of thing?
The action taken in August of 2017, it just says in the minutes that the board supported the idea, document to allow students to be involved in work study with the county. Novak seconded, motion carried 3-0. Dalkey said the board should be kept informed of any such requests. And as far as paperwork, I think we would need some just basic paperwork, just to, so that we know who it is and that we have some of the basic demographic information. I mean, is there anything else, Brad, that you could?
No, and a lot of those, it depends on the school. Some of them will have a template, and a waiver that they prepare and have available. If not, we oftentimes will fill them out.
Yeah, I think we probably have like some sort of a liability waiver.
I think it's definitely a benefit if we cooperate on these work studies.
So on the waiver, in this particular case, that waiver would have to be signed in by the parents as well? Since he's under 18?
Since he's 18.
Oh, he is 18. Oh, okay.
If it was a student that was
I thought
under
that's
18, I
senior.
think the
Yeah.
parent would have to sign.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other thing I had is, it brought to my attention that in the past, there had maybe been a time when the county went out to a couple of sport outdoor shows to kind of try to promote the lake and try to promote campers coming out to the lake. I did a little research. I didn't go as far as Kansas City. I looked them up, and there are some this spring. I really just focused on Topeka and Wichita. There's one mid-March in Wichita, which is a big, they just call it the Wichita Sports Show. It's RVs, campers, there's a couple of lakes that are there right now. The part that got me was for a booth, if you wanted to do a whole booth, it was like $600 for the weekend, which I can't say that would be, I think it'd be worth doing that, but I went ahead and gave them a call, and they said that something a lot of places in our situation kind of do is they will go there, just buy a ticket, which is $10 to all 3 shows this spring, and bring your brochure or pamphlet, and you can hand it out to the different booths, or ask them if they would put it on their table, and so people could go through and you could walk through and hand them out to people. And that would be $10 opposed to the $600 for a booth there. And I just wanted to see if it was something you guys might be interested in, or maybe trying one and seeing, if it was worth it. I haven't been to any of these listed. I have been to a couple of sports shows before.
I know that those shows, the ones I've been to, at Bing's, it's kind of right before the season starts. There is a lot of people that go out and
Yes.
just gather information, to take home so then they can sort through it.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think, in my opinion, it'd be good if you could get some places to allow some brochures.
That's what you'd rather see them do, try to just walk through and hand out? And instead of
Well,
setting the
what
booth up?
he's talking about is going to some of these booths that have lots of brochures and saying, hey, you mind if we put a pile of ours there?
Yeah, it's the $10 entry fee is all that's involved with that, opposed to the whole setting up a booth for the weekend kind of deal.
Probably get some new ones printed up, I don't know what we have.
Yes, and that's another topic that I've brought up in the past. We just got our new 2019 fishing regulations booklet last week. So the 2019 rules and all that for the state is out. Looking through it, nothing has changed for our lake from 2018 to 2019. All the fishing, the length and creel limits are the same. And I was talking to Craig, who said he doesn't believe he's probably going to change them next year either, which right now our booklets that we have are out of date as far as especially the fish creel and length limits, which is something that we've been going through, trying to make adjustments all throughout, not just the fish limits, in order to print off new brochures.
I walked through the home show this weekend in Wichita, and the thing that seems to be right now is the highly, little thick, like cardboard, the size of oh, it's not an 8x10, it's maybe 6x8 or something like that, just a high reflective card. Tony Diesel, if you've seen him on TV, he's handing them out. I mean, there was a lot of people handing these cards, and it's high reflective things that shows their work, what they do, their address, stuff like that. I think that would be something, Marion County Lake, what we do, something quick, something easy. I think that'd be maybe the cheapest thing. I don't know, not the cheapest, but they're gonna be more expensive than just a little postcard deal, but they're a little bigger. I wish I'd seen one. I didn't bring one. But anyway, that's just an idea, but if you're gonna do that, I think that would be.
Well, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to hand out something that's fairly updated and
Yes,
pertinent.
and that, you know, the ones we have now, I think it's honestly just the size of a sheet of paper, and it's front and back, put together. It's just like a little open up booklet. And that's what we have now, and you know, it looks nice. If you fold it out, it's got the map of the lake on one side, and another side's got information, but the big thing is it is out of date, so we do plan on getting a new one. If we wanted to switch it up, we could, because right now we have that, and then business cards, and those are the two things that we have. For the lake, if we wanted to get something smaller and a little more easy, it'd be a possibility to look into.
But by the time you put that together and
Yes.
get it designed,
Right.
printed,
It's gonna take some time.
Yeah, because the first one is in Topeka, is the last week of February. And then besides that, the next two are ones, the 14th through 17th in March, and that's the one in Wichita. And the last one in Topeka, which is a boat and outdoor show, is the last week there in March.
So would it be better to just go ahead, we know we have to update ours
Yes,
anyway.
right.
So wouldn't it be better to put all our money into that one,
Yeah.
get it right, and then use that? I mean,
And
the other
that-
one might be nicer, but I mean,
Right.
cost effective,
Yes.
rather than doing two
Right.
different ones.
And I don't think it would be too hard for them to change the little information. You know, there's just a
Yeah.
couple of things that need updated. Which is something, yeah, we've been talking about for a while. And I was waiting to see if this 2019, if the limits were to change, because if we would have done it and it changed right away, it would have kind of been pointless. But now that that's out, it
And you
is
can
something
change
more.
the colors, or put some silly
Right.
stuff around it, decorate it, make it look a
Right.
little more eye-appealing.
Mhm.
how many would you need?
Well,
Or would you normally order something like that?
I need to look, because right now, we still have a box, it's not full. From when I started, that looks like I talked to Adam, he said they had just ordered them the year before I started, and it was a book, and I think there were over 1,000 of them in there. Because we keep a packet in the office that when people come in, they can just grab it and go. And then we have some here at the courthouse. And I think it was like 1,500, but I can double check on that of what they originally ordered.
Do you just get those printed locally, or?
It's through, I think it's out of Wichita. I can't think of the company name that's on there, but it's on the box that I have.
It'd be nice if we could at least get a quote from a local company.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something I can figure more about and come in here next week, maybe and bring up if you want me to.
Yes, that'd be fine. That'd be good.
All right.
And then that was really it for me. Unless you guys have anything you want to.
How you doing on your road plan?
Good. I actually just talked to Jesse as he walked out. He said potentially rock today, and over the next couple of days he can bring it out to us, because right now we're still empty. And that's another question. You know, the last time we got it, I think we got 3 loads of gravel, and within that afternoon, all 3 loads were put around the residential side of the lake. Is that what you guys would wish we did with all the rock that we got now? Because another problem is the inside of the lake, our roads are bad as well. And I've talked to Jesse about it, and he knows. He's came out and driven around and seen them. It's just the last 2 loads we got went out there, and I know they needed to on the outside just as bad as we
Yeah,
did.
but you need to get them done pretty soon.
Yes.
You need some rock down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was kind of another question I wanted to bring up, just so we're all on the same page as to where that rock is exactly going. I know a lot of it that we put down the last time's already starting to wash out again. And I get calls about it, probably 2 or 3 a week, of people just reminding me, hey, you know, when you get rock, give us a call. Because I think in the past, you know, they've done it on that. There's been a stockpile over at the shop and people have come in and got truckloads or bucket loads and done their own, which we have no problem. I've talked to Gerald about it. We have no problem scooping up it in the tractor and driving it over and putting it down on the roads. I mean, it's not a whole lot of work for us, especially right now when it's slow and it's a rainy day or whatever. He can scoop up that rock and take it over there pretty quickly, and he has no problem doing that. It's just that the rock that we have there is usually gone in a day or two.
This be your first time on our roads since you've been here?
Yes.
On the lake roads?
Yes.
Are you planning on being around to where, see if they can dump it when they bring it?
And see, I talked to Jesse and he said they could. They could. He said they could at least dump it close.
some places.
Yes, close to where we need it, so we don't have to drive back and forth all the time. And that
Or
is a
spread it while
possibility.
they, while they're there, if it's not up the hill or something like that.
Okay.
On top of the hill, maybe they can spread it for you too.
Okay.
I don't think the trucks should take down the roads.
And that's kind of the big problem that I've had with Road and Bridge. What they've talked about is that a lot
I'm
of
talking
those.
about our roads inside the lake.
Oh, you're talking about the ones
Inside.
inside.
Not the outside.
Oh, okay.
Not the outside, I'm talking about the inside.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And he did say he can dump those there.
Yeah.
But is there still some on the outside areas that need it as well? Or is it probably not?
Absolutely, yes. There are definitely places on the outside of the lake, on the residential roads that need attention, yeah. And that's kind of where, you know, we were talking about it the other day, is if we get it, where do we put it?
Yeah.
Because they need it and we need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the controversy that we were talking about. I mean, it's not, it seems, you know, we'll get 2 or 3 loads and then Road and Bridges, they're tied up. And then they'll get it to us, but it's usually, you know, a month or 2 months before we get more rock. And that's kind of been the subject of discussion. The last 2 times we've got it, we've put it on the outside and kept the inside just waiting. I mean, and it's not dire right now for us on the inside because nobody's really out there using those roads, whereas here,
It won't be long.
yeah, here in a couple months,
So
it
if
is
Jesse
going to
can
be a
spread
problem.
it, if Jesse can spread that, if Road and Bridge can spread that, I think rather than just stockpiling,
Right,
trying to get that done.
yeah.
But since Jesse is so busy, and I
Yes.
mean, that man is just swamped over.
Right, right.
Can you, I mean, you have the capability of doing it.
As far, oh yeah,
As far as
as,
picking up stuff, I really hate to
Yes.
encumber Jesse on stuff like this when you
Right.
have the capability
If-
of doing it.
yes, if we
So-
can get the rock to the shop, I mean, and if he's super caught up and just wants to dump it, I mean, we can move it. It's just really how quickly, once we get that rock,
Yeah, 'cause like you
it's
said, it's
gone.
gonna disappear.
Yeah,
On our roads on the inside of the Lakeshore Drive, though, surely he can divert a truck from, not from our truck, but maybe a truck from Unruh or whoever's coming.
Thinking the same thing, I was just gonna
And-
ask about the budget. Does
Yeah.
he have any wiggle room in his budget to just buy some rock that's needed?
Yes, he does. He does.
Okay,
yeah, we do.
so then why don't we look at that a little bit?
Yeah, we just have a custom put on.
Okay. And that, okay, that works for me, and, because that was kind of gonna be a whole nother discussion is, because I know we've talked about more so than they have in the past, kind of watching those roads on the outside of the lake, but that is not something that we've really looked at when we did the budget. And so if it was something that we were gonna do, just, I mean, I was gonna make sure we keep track of what we've gotten and put out there, in case it's something we wanna keep doing moving forward.
Sure. Good idea.
I've lived out there for 27 years, and the roads aren't designed to hold roads. I mean, a lot of them got boulders sticking up. They are crowned with a boulder. And you spread the gravel around the inside of the lake, you get too many overhanging trees that are gonna catch the truck bed. So you can't do that either. A lot of places, there's trees over the roads. So it's handy to do and damn if you don't.
Well, with the exception that with what you have to do, the way you would apply it, you wouldn't be
But
using
you
the
can
overhead. No.
spread it out.
You can
Yeah,
do
those
it more,
areas that can't put
yeah,
it.
he can do it by far more.
If they could dump it different spots around them now.
Right.
Well, that's just a matter of who's there coordinating, that's why I say
Yeah.
somebody's gotta be there and coordinate with them. If you get it done, you can, they may be able to run for a 2-block stretch in some areas and then have
Right.
a dump pile for you to
Yeah.
go in or trees and things like that. But,
Yeah,
That's
it
something
can be
you
done.
say you can work with though, so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
you can handle that.
Those streets aren't designed to hold gravel on the outside. Well, on the hill and on slant
No.
and narrow.
And that's probably one of the I mean, that's the big problem, it's just them, as soon as you put it down and you get 1 or 2 rains, it washes out. You know, we'll try to scrape it again, but after a while, and it is a problem.
Is that why we put millings on that at some
I
point in
believe
time?
so.
Because it packs
Yeah.
harder and so on?
And I think that lasted a long
Yeah, I
time.
was talking, you and I were talking about the millings here,
Yeah.
I don't know, a couple weeks back or something, because
And-
that's what they had. And it lasts for years.
And I talked to Jesse about it the day he came out there and rode around with me, and he said that would have been like 5 or 6 years ago, and the state had a bunch of it left over, I guess, and they kind of gave it away for next to nothing, and he said that they just don't do it anymore. And that's how they got all that out there at the lake.
Mhm.
And he said really, the next year after that, they decided to hold on to it for that same purpose, just that it does have a lot of use, I guess.
There are lots of places, and I say there's lots of places that have it. I think you just have to get on the bandwagon and get your foot in the door to find out when it comes available at all the different, like Junction City or something, or wherever, wherever you get it, or the
Right.
state or wherever, kind of get calling around to find out where it is available.
Okay, and I can look into that, yeah.
Okay. We'll rely on your expertise to get that
Now
handled.
you're into the road business. Good job.
Okay. That's it for me.
Thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, we're way behind, so next item to do is a county engineer discussion. I think all of you, Tina supplied information to all of us in regards to what some of the other counties are doing, and job descriptions and those kind of things. And we'll need to develop a job description of our own in order to get that advertised. So, just to start this discussion, I mean, as I went through these, of course, the one that stands out to me that matches kind of what we're facing in this county is a job description for Morris County. And it seems to be more in line with what we would be looking for and require and those kind of things. I know there's in some of the other job descriptions that they're quite a bit more detailed and more responsibilities and that kind of thing, but we'll have to start somewhere, so just my thought.
Actually, as I looked through them, I thought McPherson County was my first choice, but Morris was my second because they're pretty much the same, give or take. I mean, McPherson has a few more qualifications,
Right.
more direct qualifications. Well, maybe they're just the same, just written differently to be a little bit more direct. And I like a lot of the qualifications that are listed there. To me, they're all just essential and pertinent to the road job. Although Morris County does have, but they have, if you compare theirs, it's a little elementary compared to McPherson, in my opinion, just looking at the qualifications and the essential functions of the position as well. But I think we can piecemeal it, take what we like from one to the other and make it the way we like it. We can customize it to what
Yeah, I
we
mean,
want.
there's a couple things in there that I would like to add, which are mostly secondary type things. I mean, I think we definitely need to look for someone that's a team builder and that's gonna take ownership of the process. That's gonna be, to me, very important going forward.
And I like the idea of having a minimum of 5 years experience and at least 3 years experience in management. I mean, I want somebody that's experienced.
And we're just gonna have to see how that washes out when we start taking applications.
If we set our bar high, we can always come down.
Yeah.
But if we start midway, we're gonna struggle getting up.
There's a lot of competition from what I see in civil engineering.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Randy?
You can, both, the two that you talked about is the leaders and what we have here, but how are we gonna make it fit our county is exactly what we gotta do. And an engineer is only, some of them's only good for certain things. And that's, you can't use them for everything. And that's, I've talked to one this week. That's, he said, just depends on what you know, directing towards the roads and stuff like that. But he's not gonna design a building for you.
And I don't know if that's what we're looking for.
No, but
I know what you're saying.
yeah.
It'd be nice.
It's just not gonna save us when, we're gonna still have to go out and get an engineer for other things.
Right. Right.
Hopefully on the roads, hopefully that's what we hire one for.
You know, plus, you know, we just look at the cost of a salary, it's gonna be more than that, because these engineers have specialized software that they have to use in their daily operations, and my guess is, I haven't tried to price any of that, but from what I understand, it's fairly expensive. There's CAD type software, and then there's some even more technology advanced stuff than even that at this point, but I know a lot of the county engineers in this area use a CAD type software. So, you know, that's something we're gonna have to provide to that person.
Do you wanna set a session, go through specifically on one of these, or both of them, or combine them?
Well, we've gotta come up with a job description, so that's probably gonna take a special session to do that.
You wanna, I don't know if it's gonna take that long, cause everything's already written out.
Yeah.
And you read it, so you know what you're looking for, and I
Right.
know what I'm looking for, and we can just give Tina what we're looking for, and she can put it into one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need half a day.
I don't either, I think an hour or so after the meeting, or whenever,
That'd be,
I mean, I don't wanna beat it to death, it's right here in front of us.
I mean, I think we need to continue to move forward, because
Yep,
you might even have a few college graduates that want to apply.
that'd be great.
no,
That's not
not to you. You
Well,
just said
then
you
you
wanted-
have
then you
you
don't
said
have
you
your
wanted-
5 years
Yeah,
experience.
5 years
Forget that
experience.
then,
Unless you have bad shape.
never know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna show up, I really don't. I know the last time we was looking for a supervisor in the road and bridge, we had one apply, but he wasn't one of the legal guys.
Brad, you made a statement at the last meeting that headhunters are very pricey. What is your definition of very pricey?
Well, and I say very pricey, I mean, you get what you pay for. The ones that are, that provide you with some element of, for lack of a better term, warranty
Guaranteed?
with this, yeah, and are willing to follow up and kind of hang with it for a period of time to get to be expensive quickly. You can get the quick hitter that, you know, they will find you someone, and then that's it. Oftentimes, they're pricing on the basis of a percentage of first year's salary of this person, which obviously that person doesn't want to absorb, so that would come from here. So a little bit of it depends upon what we look to pay. But by that, I mean, it can be anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000 for that service. I haven't seen too many below that. In terms of just calling and asking, what do you charge? Well, it depends. What are you looking for? And you've never created the position before. Oh, well, and that seems to have some impact on it.
And now they go all over the United States,
Yes.
right? They're not just limited here, so I mean, they
Unless
have
you
a-
tell them that you have some reason you want it to be local, they're going to go ahead and usually do it as a national search. That's what I
So
hear
they're-
consistently when I ask.
Yeah, so therefore you have by far more resources.
Mhm. Mhm. Of course, you have, as they continually mention, you then have the challenge of the move and those costs that, you know, getting them here. And some lack of familiarity. You hope that they do a little bit of their own homework as a professional. and don't move from the East Coast and say, wow, this was a little bit of a culture shock, or, you know, that sort of thing, unless they want to.
And that is a culture shock,
It is, yeah.
because I did it.
And with engineering, it's come up several times, and it's different all over the country in terms of what you've got in the way of challenges, depending on weather conditions and what it is that they're working with in, you know, the road and bridge environment. You know, temperature extremes versus something that's fairly constant and mild. So arid versus, you know, a lot of moisture. So not that they don't adjust to that and they aren't trained, but, you know, it depends on where they've been from too.
Put the dollars aside, what is your best professional opinion as far as getting a headhunter? I mean, I hear some really good things about them.
Again, it depends upon what it is that you want to do, and in these kinds of circumstances, given the competitive nature, as I perceive it, having done this, you know, recently, and certainly not with an engineer. I've done it with other types of professionals very recently, but not an engineer. I think Ken mentioned that once before. They're kind of in demand. I mean, these guys, there's not a huge pool, and there are a number of entities in the area that are always looking. So a headhunter is nice in many ways just because they do a lot of that legwork for you. You can try it in stages. You can go ahead and put out, you know, all of these different publications which were suggested. Those types of, here's our job description, here's what we're looking for, here are our salary requirements, or at least generally where we're at, and see if you get on your own, serve as your own hunter, or you can just start from the premise that, you know, I think it'd be better to spend the money up front and see if we can do a concerted effort with someone who does it all the time.
Now, is it true that if they don't find us anybody, then we don't pay them?
Right. In most cases, there are some that have a kind of a mobilization fee that they charge, but when I ask, again, I'm making those phone calls kind of ask that question, so you don't find, again, what they're going to do, and by not finding someone, what I mean by that is they don't find you suitable candidates at all. Then in those instances, the general answer has been, you know, that really is a very minimal, if any, fee. Now, they generally say, but we don't quit till we find you suitable candidates. Now, whether you hire them or not,
Well,
you know,
yeah,
then that's the next
reasonable.
point of contention about, or the next threshold. We find you 6 what we consider to be qualified candidates consistent with what your job description and requirements were, and you don't hit on those. But again, most of the time, almost all of them that I've talked to, that you would probably consider, will continue on. I mean, they'll keep going until they find you someone there. Takes a while sometimes.
And I think what you just said is key, that they will find us what we are required.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't hire one of the 6, shame on us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but as I said, in most cases I ask, so you get these 6, they may all look good on paper, but just don't seem like a fit. Then what? Well, then we go out again. And so that was the general answer. They don't just stop at that point.
A question that I would have is that, you know, sometimes these processes end up dragging out much longer than you intend.
Yep.
Now, I know when it comes to administrators, and Anthony can speak to this, sometimes there are groups that these retired engineers, administrators belong to that could fill your position for a year, 2 years.
And we'll come in
And
and do some
I don't know when
consulting.
it comes to engineers now, they do with administrators. I don't know if you have any clue about engineers?
I'm sure some of those groups exist, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, in looking at that, I wouldn't be against having some guy come in that's retirement age and say they'd give us 2 years or something like that.
What they tend to do, again, that did come up once already, with someone who's in that range, they're easing out.
Right.
They will not necessarily come in here and give you 40 to 60 hours a week on a salary basis. They may come in here and say, now I'm happy to come in and do some more than consulting but less than full-time kinds of things, where they'll come in and give you 30 hours a week for that kind of a thing for a set fee.
Yeah.
And they hit the ground running because they did it for 35 or 40 years.
Right.
there's, by definition, they've retired for a reason. They want to start
Right.
to get out of the business.
But,
But we'll find that there are guys out there that seem to be interested at least.
you know, if you're talking about experience,
Mm-hmm.
there's experience there.
Mm-hmm.
And the most reasonable place to find somebody like that would be probably a headhunter would know that, where to find that type of stuff, right?
Yeah, and they're professional organizations.
Mhm.
The engineers have the same kinds of things that about any profession does. They've got organizations that they belong to, national and state.
You know, I'm just wondering if we have a state organization.
That I don't
We-
know. I didn't
we-
ask that question.
Well, I talked to Norm Bowers and he gave me a list of, I think, 3.
Mhm.
So, you know,
But-
that would be also a good place to reach out to.
Mhm.
Could you do that we could do that, if you hired a headhunter, that doesn't mean that we can't search on our own, does it, or does it?
No.
So-
No, you're not precluded. They, you know, obviously you're paying them, so,
If we hire one that they found for
Yeah.
us. But if we hire one that we found on our own,
I guess that would be
something we have to make sure was in the
yeah,
contract,
yeah.
that they would allow us the right to do our own
To,
search.
to independently continue to search.
I mean, I think that's a good idea.
Can it be done? Yeah.
It's not ethical.
Yeah, that's the problem with it, is getting them to agree, say, well, now, wait a minute.
Well, it's
You're-
ethical if it's
Yeah,
right
if
up
you
front.
hire somebody, then we
If it's
get a
right
zip.
up front and
Yeah,
they know
yeah.
what they're doing.
You won't get the good service from them if you're gonna compete against them.
If you wanted to do that, you might want to
Do it
do it in the phased approach
Yeah, like we
instead.
were talking about
So
earlier.
where, go to those organizations first after you develop your job description, advertise in the media and specifically through those organizations on their, most of the time, those type of organizations have an email listserv that they send out
Because
to
what
all
I,
the members.
yeah, and what I have done in a case like that, you are still looking at it, you've got 2 or 3 who are going, I'm not sure I want to do that, check back with me in 3 months or 2 months. You can have a list of those kinds of individuals that you work into that contractual relationship with a headhunter and say, now, these we found on our own. If you come back to us with this same person, there's got to be some change in the fee structure. Because we already did this. They just weren't ready at the time that we were looking, but they look like someone we might consider. You know what I mean? You've got some exceptions. You can do that kind of thing. But yeah, what I was saying earlier, I think would probably be your better approach. If you want to do that, put it out there, see what you get. The thing is timing. You know,
That's what I was gonna say.
You'll go
Timing.
4 to 6, 8 weeks doing that before you move on to a header.
Because there's at least 3, 4 counties that I know of that, I mean, are looking for the same thing.
Mhm.
And able to pay more than, we're willing to pay more than we are doing.
It's ideal for the engineers because they can go from county to county and bid you against each other.
So how would we go about that with the headhunters? Do you get several to come talk to us and tell us their fees, or,
They'll usually present something like a brochure, a written proposal of what they're willing to do, what their fee structure is, how they go about doing it, what kind of longer-term follow-up they utilize, if any. You can take those and they will give you, in most cases, a list of references, who they've done this for, comparably situated to us, other counties, for example, in the state, that you can call before they ever hit the door.
and I say that all the time because I think it's in the email that, I want to say McPherson County, they've been looking now for quite some time, and in the email that was presented to us, they haven't had very many bites already, you know. And so I'm almost leaning towards at least finding out what a headhunter would charge and what service they do provide, so we could.
But in the meantime, we could reach out to these state organizations. I think that would, I would be in favor of doing that. Once we get a job description, say, hey.
That's your first threshold requirement, and then you can spread that around as you see fit. And just make those kinds of inquiries. Say, we really wouldn't mind considering a stopgap of some kind if we've got somebody who's at the tail end of a career but wants to ease out and do something like this. Is that even a possibility? Is there someone around like that?
Yeah.
You just don't know till you ask.
In my opinion, I'd like to pursue that from that angle.
Only?
Well, I'm not saying that we won't end up hiring a headhunter, but I'd like to first reach out to these organizations. What's your thought, Randy?
Well, I think it has to be one or the other. and to start with, and give yourselves some timeline. If we don't accomplish nothing in that timeline, then we go to the other thing. That's my opinion, but whatever. We've had a commissioner discussed and say that other commissions has thrown a lot of money away doing things like this, and I don't want to be criticized for doing something like this.
Right.
If we're going to do it, we're going to do it. If we're not, we're not. And so, the deal that you're talking about, I think, is what you call a stopgap. Is that the way you're going to put it? That's a good way to put it. Get us started in something. If we found something like that, if we come across something like that, I'd like that too. I mean, to start with.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a transition type deal where, hey, we found a guy that's gonna give us 25 or 30 hours a week. That doesn't mean we're still not, in the back of our minds, wanting a full-time
Correct.
individual. But at least gets us going, because
Yeah.
we need to get going.
Yeah. You think that Norm said he had 3 or 4 organizations?
Yeah, I didn't bring them with me, but
Yeah.
he gave me a list of 3 or 4 to contact. I mean, it's just,
Did
yeah.
it sound like maybe this person might be in one of those 3 or 4 that you,
It was just the name of the organization.
Okay.
There was no one, but he did tell me, just in our conversation, he said, Diane, you're gonna have a hard time. And he told me because of all the competition that we have with the other counties, and professional people, if you have an engineer and he's married to a professional wife, then you need to have 2 jobs in this county to entice them to come here, depending what her professional would be. And then, of course, the money and the services that we offer here.
that fits in a lot of job descriptions that we've went out for the last 10 years. Is we have to have a professional situation for the wife to come to. Yeah.
So, but I
We
don't
don't
know.
know until we start.
Yeah, that's right.
So we need to start, so we need to get a job description and go from there, so.
So are we gonna work on the job description after the meeting today, or did you wanna do it?
I would have time maybe.
Okay.
I would have
Regular
time.
thing.
Okay,
Okay,
all right,
all right.
okay, we'll move
Step
on
one.
then. Right now, I wanna take a 5-minute break, and we'll reconvene at 11:10 with the wind farm.
Yes.
Carolina?
Thank you.
Why don't you take that in chair?
All right.
His colleagues can take a couple of the other chairs.
Okay.
Morning.
Good morning.
Wait a second for those folks to get in here. Okay, I guess everybody's present. Go ahead, Pat.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you very much for letting us come before you. We do not have a long agenda. We'll keep this to the length that you guys would appreciate. I think you're aware that I represent the Expedition Wind Farm that is in development. I can tell you that we've made great progress over the last 3 or 4 months, both in terms of signing leases. We have carried forward all of the Doyle leases, and virtually all of those have signed a new lease, better terms, and then we've added substantially to the footprint. We're making good progress on offtake. Not much more I can say about that at this stage, but we hope to have some good news over the next 60 to 90 days with a reasonable expectation that we would build out the project starting this fall and bring it to COD at some point in 2020. That's our schedule. So along those lines, we have gone to work on the CUP process. And I guess I'd let you know that we have determined to put together an overlay CUP over our entire footprint. I think the purpose of that is to put a document in place that deals specifically with our project, lays out specifically what we agree how it should be developed, and at the stage that we've got an approval with you, we would release the underlying CUPs, because they would not apply at any stage anymore going forward. That process, we think, will be ready to submit to you in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
And so this meeting is more of an update. I know there had been some questions over time in terms of your communication with the developers and wind projects. So prior to submitting the CUP, we thought it'd be worthwhile to come speak to you, take some feedback, and incorporate that into our document as necessary. With me this morning, we've got Troy Bushman, who's our staff person working on the CUP. Troy's been out here half dozen times, getting to know the hotels and people of Marion County very well. We also have Trish Both. Trish is with the Folston firm out of Wichita, and she will be representing us in terms of the follow-through on the CUP. And we chose her firm because they've got a history of both working with people such as yourself, commissions, and with developers, and with landowners. So I'd like her to spend just a couple minutes giving you some background on her firm and their approach, if we could.
Good morning. Trish Both. I'm actually born and raised in Gossel. And actually I passed my dad walking out the courthouse steps when I walked in, paying his tags or taxes.
Small world.
Went to school in Gossel, graduated from Gossel. I've been with Folston for 20 years. I've been out of law school for 20 years and been with Folston for the entire time. I've been working with wind projects for about 17 years, working with landowners, wind project developers, and also counties related to wind projects. And our firm worked on the first 2 wind projects, actually, commercial utility scale wind projects here in the state. And as he said, just here today to meet you and give an update on the project, and really just to field any questions that you would have at this moment, so that going forward the project can be as helpful and responsive to the commissioners and the citizens and the landowners as possible.
And she has been working directly with Pat Lewis. We understand that he'll be representing the county. We understand he's got good experience in your ordinance as well as working on wind, so I think that's an advantage for all of us. I just a couple of minor issues which I will just reference, just I think follow up to other discussions that we've had. We have been using some of the local folks that were involved with Doyle to help tie all the leasing together. I want to be real clear that decisions have been made at NRS for the last 6-8 months. We've been down here, I think you've seen on a pretty consistent basis. And we haven't come bothered you every time we're down here, but we want to keep you informed. One of the comments I want to make, and I'll just be real candid with our history, we built about 750 megawatts over the last 6 or 7 years. Some good-sized projects. And we historically have built those projects in partnership with the landowners that we work with. This project's a little different from the standpoint that we acquired the project from the existing group. And I say that simply because generally our relationships with the governmental units that we work with have been pretty good, mainly because we're part of the community generally. You go down to eastern New Mexico, we built almost 500 megawatts down there. And if you go online on the OEO website, they actually featured that. They've got about a half dozen of our landowners that give representation of how the process worked and how they're really pleased with the project. And I say that because our history has not been to, as soon as we come into an area, start dialing the phone to people such as yourself. We want to get established in the community, get our landowners comfortable with what we're doing. But now as we work through this process, we would offer, once we've submitted the CUP, to meet with you individually as appropriate and answer your questions directly, take your feedback directly. I will leave more business cards. I've left some before. But we would, it's not our history to knock on your door necessarily, but we'd like to be here and answer the questions as you would see. So we would encourage you to send us an email and say, hey, next time you're in town, I'd like to spend a half hour, I got some questions. We'd be very happy to do that. So we want to make that an option. Secondly, I think there's been some questions regarding a permanent staff and office in town. That is our next step. We usually build that around the same time that we get permitting approval, because when you get permitting approval, you're looking at building a project over the next 3 to 6 months generally. And that's as things become a little more intense and more serious and questions arise, and you need somebody here to help manage those. And as we move through the process, we'll be bringing a staff person in here. And probably won't be here 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, but on a pretty regular basis, and you'll be able to reach them, and landowners and your staff will be able to reach out to us locally. I know there were some questions last time as you worked through the process in terms of the roads agreement, so we've been very sensitive to that. And in fact, we're talking with 2 contractors that would build the project. We've got a preliminary layout already, and we have suggested, and they have agreed, that they would be available the night of the public hearing. And we offer that. In addition, we think one of the best things we can do is let us get your roads scoped, documented prior to any of our construction, so that you guys have a good record of what we have, because we're going to be responsible to bring them back to at least what they are today. We understand that. And if, building them back leaves you in a better position, all the better for us and the project and yourselves. And that's where we'd like to end up. So you can expect that the night of the public hearing, we'll have somebody here to address that issue, and you'll have a good contact. Those are my questions and issues. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions, schedule-wise. Tell you what I can tell you about what we're doing to get the project built on a time frame, but
I just added, do you have a definite date set for a public hearing yet, or where are you at on that, in that process as far as the CUP goes?
The date we're targeting to submit the CUP is the 28th of February. And that leads us, I think, was Troy.
That's the March 5th, I believe, planning and zoning meeting, and the 26th of March commission.
In regards to that,
Yeah.
Sharon's sitting back here. I'm going to address her first, answer my questions, and then we'll get back to you.
Sure.
Sharon, we have a zone right now for wind farms, correct?
Yes.
Okay, is part of this project going to exceed that project, that area?
From what I understand, they're talking about submitting a whole new CUP application that would supersede the existing CUPs. So a condition of a new CUP may be that all agreements and any documents pertaining to this new CUP would supersede any existing CUP agreements.
Okay, I guess my question though is, are they expanding the zone? Are they going outside of our set limits for wind farms right now that we have?
Right now, the wind overlay district encompasses the entire county.
Okay. So now I'm going to thank you, Sharon. You bought or acquired a farm that started with us 8 to 10 years ago. I don't know exactly how long. Are you honoring all of their agreements with us or not that was in the original?
I think we're actually doing better than that. We're letting you review every agreement that we'll be held accountable to. In other words, there are certain rights and everything in the original document. That document's 10 years old or 8 years old, right? We don't think it's a very efficient document for you or us, and as a result, we would rather get an approval on a new document so that every issue that we've talked about is on the table. Does that help?
It does, except that we've been told these 8 years that everything will be, you know, and if there's a chance for a new one, that would be up for the commissioners to decide, I understand that. But I'm just following through with what's been promised to us with a lot of years behind this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's a better deal, I guess that's maybe good for the county, I don't know.
You're talking about a better deal for the landowners?
Better deal for the landowners, for the county, you know, I think our goal is to build a project that you can be proud of across the board.
The reason why I'm asking this is because it has been expanded from the original wind farm layout. And we're moving into an area, I think, from what I hear from the public, down in this area. Am I correct? Somewhere south of Hillsboro down to, are you going to past Indigo West?
I don't believe.
No. No?
No.
How about, how far south you coming? 70th, 80th, 90th?
I think we're probably as far south as 70th
70th?
and not much further west past Mustang.
No. Past Mustang, okay. Well, there's been a lot of new landowners, you know, that's either had invitation to the Alney meeting or something to that effect. And there's some landowners being affected that maybe didn't get that invite because they live right outside of this area.
Okay.
And so I'm just telling you that there is a lot of people now that, once we get to this stage, that has some concerns. And I think they will be bringing them to us, the way I understand it. So
Okay.
that's being as fair as I can be at this point.
Yeah, and let me respond, I think, from a development standpoint, if I could. The footprint that we inherited had a lot of value to it. And we have honored every lease that's in that footprint, at least I think we told you we were not taking anything down the Flint Hills area. We've honored every lease and in fact improved all of those leases. But we have needed more property to build the project, given the size of the generation and the connection agreement, and we have reached out to that area. Generally, we've reached, I think the reception has been pretty positive, and I do not, I'm not arguing that there may be some people that aren't happy or.
Correct.
I guess I would turn and ask the question, are you getting some people wondering why we're not continuing to go their direction, or we're now?
No, it's definitely, you're affecting our area and we're not happy, so.
Okay.
So that's what we've got. You just brought up an interesting point about where's our power going to? It's not gonna go hook into the north section, is it, or is it gonna come south? The last time that I know Rex brought it to us was going south somewhere to a connection point to build this project.
Yeah, we have a interconnection point actually down in Butler County, and we're using the same right-of-ways and that same location.
Okay.
So,
How many towers is this involved?
we're actually using a little bit larger turbines. We're at about 80 towers right now. 2.8 megawatt turbines.
And I know some of the comments that I've received by moving the footprint farther west is now you're into more of a agricultural type real estate out of the grass and the hills, and a lot of individuals just, you know, they're wondering about the impact it's going to have, not so much on them, but the future generations, how that's going to impact how they farm, how they handle their production practices, and those kind of things, which are, you know, those are all new things that are popping up. You know, how's this going to affect? One guy said that he'd already had a crop sprayer say a crop sprayer will not come within a mile of a turbine. You know, know, and there are times that we run into where, you know, it's imperative to have those kind of people out taking care of crops when you can't do it yourself. But, you know, that's what I've been told. I haven't had anybody that's in that business say, no, they won't get that close, or they will, or, you know, how this is gonna impact this or that. And there's just a lot of, once you get into ag, it seems like when you get into ag real estate outside of the grassland, there's just a whole myriad of more questions and maybe concerns.
And I think it's really great that you bring those up, because again, the point of being here is just to go ahead and open up for questions, so that, you know, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We're going to submit the application hopefully in a couple weeks. Might take a bit. I mean, they're balancing a lot of factors to get that application submitted as soon as it's ready, but they want it to be ready. And so they definitely wanted to just be responsive and make sure they're aware of any specific issues and questions, so that they can help share information about those when they apply.
And I'm sure some of these questions are gonna come up in a public hearing.
Sure. Absolutely.
And, you know, are you going to be able to answer them
And that way
the way they
they'll
wanna
bring
be
in
answered?
bring information, right, rather
Yeah.
than not be able to share information.
8 to 10 years ago, when it originally was with Rex, and I had the privilege to sit here, aircraft spraying wasn't even brought up at that time. Since then, we've had a person build a hangar out here at the Marion Airport, and that's his business out here, right out of Marion Airport, spray cropping and stuff. And then I think, me growing up, it was a rarity to see a plane fly around this area, but now they're there all the time in the dusting season or spraying season. So what climate has changed here, not only moving into the agricultural, but originally this footprint was in a lot more pasture ground than where it was. So there's some concern, and so things have changed since 10 years since this project was first put together. So.
Great. Any other topics or issues we should be
I
aware of?
I have some questions for you, okay? I just want to clarify for my own understanding some things. I did attend the Albany meeting. I was down there, you invited me that day, and you were right, the pie was awesome. But I remember very distinctly hearing at that meeting that these were 90-year leases. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. They are, I don't know, Troy, if you can remember, but they're generally 45-year leases.
45 years.
Right. And the commitment is to pay those leases through the full 45-year terms, or provide appropriate notice, and during that time period, obviously, and we've got built within the lease the decommissioning that's required if you do take it down.
Okay. Now that decommissioning though that you're talking about is between you and the property owner.
Right.
So I want to talk now about the road maintenance agreement, the decommissioning with the county for roads, and a proposed pilot. Like you said yourself, the contracts that are in existence now are 8, 9 years old. And I read them, and they're horrible. So I'm going to ask you right now, going forward, are you willing to go ahead and bring them up to standard and redo the entire thing?
The plan is to give you a comprehensive agreement. We think it's an agreement that's very consistent with the way wind farms are being developed throughout the country. And in fact, respect the comments in terms of the ag area. We're based out of Minnesota, built the first 2 wind farms in Minnesota, and we have a number of landowners, and yes, it does require some differences in the way you manage your agricultural operation. But generally, the relatively small set-aside that you have for a turbine versus the payments that you get as it even spread over your entire acreage usually is pretty significant. Now, people need to make their own determination on that, given their own operation, but we'll have some information available on exactly, what space the turbine takes, what we do with the underground wires, and how that might affect the operation. And you're right, probably the most significant area is airplane prop spraying is an area that needs to be addressed. But most of the rest of the activities that agricultural people take into account can continue with some modifications.
Okay, but that was not my question. You're diverting back to property owners.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about road maintenance agreements that affect, that the county will be negotiating with you, and the decommissioning on the part of the county on the roads.
Yes.
And the existing pilot agreement that we have from 8 years ago, or whenever it was, being that they are dinosaurs and really are not conducive to today's world, are you telling me then that we're going to renegotiate those to be a current?
Yeah, my understanding is that we will move through the CUP process, and that has certain base requirements, and your code, I think, is pretty straightforward, and we're going to be very responsive to that. And then we need to then also negotiate with you a separate roads and decommissioning agreement, and you've given us some guidance in terms of your standards.
So then the road agreement that is now in place, you didn't buy that when you got the, you said that you carried over the Doyle leases.
You know what, those are in place and they could still be effective, but like you, we agree that those documents were written at a time when the business was quite different. And we think you and us are going to be much happier to look at new agreements across the board.
This might help you. This is, so your zoning regulations, if they apply, which you're planning to do, apply for a conditional use permit, then one of the requirements under a conditional use permit in your zoning regs is that if their conditional use permit is approved, this new one that we're talking about, if that's approved, a condition of them being able to use it is to come back and work with you on a road agreement. And a second condition for them to use it, to be able to build, is to come back and work with you on a decommissioning agreement. So those topics, that protection for the county is hardwired into your zoning code, so that it's not something that you necessarily put in place before you make your conditional use permit decision, but between then and before they get to start building.
You know, and I understand that.
Oh,
I guess the
I
reason
apologize.
the reason we got generated is because, well, the experience that we have up north, and I have been in contact with a lot of surrounding counties and wind companies. And wind companies are sold pretty frequently, it seems. And so when they make these sales, usually the new buyer assumes the existing contract as they are written, okay? And so therefore, since you said that you had acquired from the existing group, so now, based on experience and what we see and what I know happens, you have now acquired the existing road maintenance agreements and deconditioning. And so I wanted to know if that's where you're gonna start from. You acquired this, and is this what you're under the impression that this is how you're gonna operate under that contract? Or are you telling me now that no, we're gonna renegotiate a new one? Is that what you're telling me?
If the if a new conditional use permit, which is what they're talking about applying for soon, if that new permit is approved and granted, then one of the conditions of it will be for them to renegotiate those road use and decommissioning agreements with you.
And
New ones would come with that new CUP.
And let's just use our imagination and just say for some reason it was not approved. Then you would divert back to the existing ones. Is that what you're saying? Because they're in place, right?
There are current CUPs in place that have agreements with them. And so those would not be affected if the new CUP is not approved.
Can I ask you
Yes.
a question? Would you prefer that we would come forward with a new CUP that I think takes into account current practices and current rules? I mean, I'm saying that because I think that's in your and our best interests. And I think what
That's a good question.
Trish is.
But doesn't the new CUP supersede all prior
CUPs, we would agree to that, yes. At
Yeah.
the stage that we get a new CUP in place.
I think personally, my opinion is based on the history of this particular situation down there and the good, the bad, and the ugly that's involved in it, I don't feel comfortable piecemealing any more to it. You see what I'm saying? To me, the right thing to do, the correct thing to do, if you're a reputable company and what you're saying is correct, and I have no reason to doubt you, that you would want to start out fresh.
Yep.
I mean, who wants to start with this type of baggage? I mean, it's just my opinion. I mean, I don't want to sit here, I don't want to go home and have to sort through the old and the middle and now the new.
Commissioner, the
And
good, the
try to-
bad, and the ugly is a good description.
Yeah.
There's some good in there, absolutely.
There, I'm sure there is,
But,
yes.
I think, the industry has changed
Mhm.
substantially. And we want to make sure that we build a project to current standards so that you've got something to evaluate us. But we want to be evaluated on a consistent basis with what's happening in the industry. And we think that that's a good thing for all of us at this stage, right? And, because we own that asset and it's got some continuation, we probably wouldn't let that go until we get something that supersedes it that we think is better and we're all on the same page with. But that's exactly our plan. So
Would you be able to provide us a map of your new footprint?
we'll have all the maps and everything.
Yep,
in the-
that's right, that's one of the requirements.
And
of
I
the
do want to
application.
just clarify for my own sake, when you say that you carried over all the Doyle leases from the existing group, can I take away from that Rex Savage is no longer have any interest in that? None? Or
What
is-
we have done is that we have rewritten and re-executed leases with all of the old parties. Now, I think you're familiar that Rex has been helping us with that, he's got those contacts. But the leases that will govern the property will be new leases, and they will be 100% consistent with what everybody else signs, including better financial terms.
Like what he's saying, Rex was working as like an agent or landman to,
He has
communicate,
he has no
interface.
ownership.
No, he has no ownership in Expedition.
But he has an interest in some way, shape, or form.
He's being compensated for his efforts with us, yes.
Okay. And I know this is kind of maybe a little bit different, but I know on the existing wind farm that we have up there, we had the option to hire an engineer at our choice to oversee and be our county protector, shall we say, and at their expense. Was the initial, as we went into it, at their expense. Is that something that your firm also offers or not?
It is not something we've done in any previous circumstances. I think if there's money involved in that process, we think maybe permanent staff on your case might be better than a one-time consultant, but you guys make that choice. We'd rather, we're gonna be here, right? We'd rather work with people that are gonna be here going forward, because you're gonna call us 2 years from now. Say your service trucks were out, we got a problem with the road. And that should come from your staff that was here right through the process, rather than somebody that's gone now and is governing it. So we understand the issue, and we're willing to work with you on that, but as I said, I guess our preference, instead of hiring an engineer to come in and do a one-shot deal, let's get somebody at Marion County that we're working with for the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, one of the problems we've had in the past is we do not have a county engineer. We're working on that. But we did not have anyone with that total amount of expertise. And so we really had to go outside the realm and find a company that would do that.
Yeah, and we still are at that point, and we really can't afford to pay one of our people that are already in a position to, I'm gonna say, babysit. And they do, I'm comparing from what I see happening up there, and
We have
I
a
am
daily
thankful.
Crescent
Yeah, well, I'm thankful that we hired Kirk and Michael to do that, because it is a 24/7 job.
Okay.
You need extra eyes on that project up there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I mean, I know all wind companies are not created equal, so, I mean, this is nothing personal, I'm just talking about experience from what I always see, and I live right up there, so I see it all the time. And, I don't know of anybody that we would be able to hire within our county that we would have, that we could just take off of their job to do
Right.
that.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that topic on the list of what we come back and work with you on the road use agreement after we're through the CUP process, absolutely.
I'm talking as I'm a landowner now.
Okay.
As I'm a landowner, you come to meet me and sign a contract with me. And I think you just touched on it a while ago. You said something that all contracts are the same? From
Yes.
east to west, north to south?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've done that from our first contract we ever signed in business. I can't say 100% because you run into a certain circumstance where there might be a certain operation on this farm where they need some special consideration. But financially, terms and conditions, lengths, all of the key provisions will be consistent with every landowner. And the other thing that we do that not all landowners, not all lease companies do, or wind companies, we provide a land payment. I used to be in the business, when I first got in the business, you know, the landowners used to fight over getting their turbine, because that's how they get paid, right? Well now, if you got your land in the deal, we're paying you a per acre cost for every acre, not where you just got wires in the ground or anything, but anything inside that footprint. And that's eased a lot of those problems.
What about the guy that lives right across the street that does not have any land in the game, but he lives right there? How are we looking at those people?
We have signed, and I'm not as familiar with who signed and who has not, but we also signed what we call participation agreements, where they may not have any assets, any of our assets on their property, but we make an annual payment to them as well.
Okay. Next question then is, when you give me that contract, I'm hearing that contract may be as thick as this book right here in front of you.
Yeah. That was probably the hardest thing that we took. There's two reasons for that. Number one, it's got to be able to stand up on both sides. Okay? We take these projects and go raise $300 million in financing. The site control is a critical issue. What I will tell you is that, you know, it's most landowners take the lease to their own attorney. And there's going to say there's a lot of garbage in there, but that garbage might be the piece that the guy that's writing a $150 million check needs to, for some continuity or something like that. But they generally don't impact or affect the landowner in a negative way. Is that helpful a bit?
Except some complaints already, I think some people's already read some fine lines. It says, if I want to take and build a building, if I want to take and doe some trees out, I don't know how extensive that goes into this contract, but they would have to check with you if you have a windmill on their property.
And generally, that's a proximity issue.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's affecting assets that we have invested on your property, we would like to know about it and be able to prove.
So are you compensating the landowners that take their contract in for an opinion? Are you paying for the opinion?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, that's not our issue. I just
Actually, that we have set a limit, $600-800 towards legal fees, and then if there's an exceedance, that's on the landowner, but we have done that in cases where they've wanted it reviewed.
Okay.
No denial that the documents aren't fixed. But we do have we've got an exhibit that goes through all the financial aspects. And it's a 2 or 3 pager that even I can read and understand. So, And I think landowners generally can read that and understand how they can compensate.
I hate to tell you this, but there's a couple of lawyers sitting at this table, so be careful.
I just have one final question. If hypothetically, if the CUP fails, are you going to continue the project under the old CUP?
I'm not sure I could give you a good answer on that, and let me just say it this way, we haven't studied it to try to figure that out.
Okay.
That hasn't been our purpose.
And I think, no matter what, I know I've got a different light bulb turning on now than I had 10 years ago, and I think all of us do, than we had 2 years ago even, before we started the project in this county. Now we've got, I don't know, what's it, 75% done, or 180, 90% done
Very
now?
close to being done.
Yeah, or 95 maybe, I don't know. So, we will be very cautious because I think there's a lot more things we've learned, and we want a few things improved upon, even though this company that's here this year didn't get the greatest of weather. I mean, the weather has not been cooperating with that company, so they've tore a lot of things up that probably wouldn't have happened if it'd been a dry year, so.
Right. That's why we're here. We understand that you are experienced with a few battles behind you, and you know, the best way for us to avoid problems is to talk about them on the front end. So,
Can I come up with another question for you?
Sure.
What inspired the change of the mapping of the area? What inspired you to do that?
why we
Expand
changed
it.
the footprint?
Mhm.
It wasn't wind oriented. Let me
Oh, I see.
just be real clear that you know,
Okay.
we're fighting for pennies
Mhm.
to win contracts, and the best wind so you need to put the turbines in the best places, and we monitor. The first thing we did is we put up 2 more Met towers, right, so we could figure out exactly where the wind is in this footprint. And you can appreciate, as you get into the lower areas and down by the rivers, those aren't great wind areas. And we've got a lot of those properties. We're honoring all those leases, but those aren't the best properties necessarily for a wind farm.
I want to confirm your dates. You said something about February 28th. What
I'm
happened
going
to
to
February 28th?
defer to Troy on that.
What happened
That's
on-
the CUP filing deadline to make the planning and commission by March.
Okay, so you'll just file it at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
and it might not happen at that time, but
But
that's,
that's your
they'd
goal
love
right
to.
now.
Right,
Okay.
right, it's just a matter of getting all the pieces to fall into place.
And then it'll be on the March, at this time, the March 5th planning and zoning meeting.
I believe
It'll
that's,
be March the 28th.
Oh.
If they file February 28th, then we publish in the newspaper and after 21 days of notification. That meeting would fall March 28th.
that's right, and then
Oh, I
in
see.
April would be the commission approval.
Correct.
Okay, so then it'll be March
When would the
28th.
public hearing be? It would be at the
March
March
28th.
28th.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions this time.
Not this time.
Great, appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you.
I've got some questions. For one thing, is you're talking about the wind, and you've only had them net tires up for 6, 7, 8 months. I mean, so what are you talking about, the wind? I mean, as far as how you know what the wind is and the conditional use permit stuff you had over there, that the land that you're not using because of the wind, but you haven't had them tires up for a year, even testing for that.
Well, the old towers have been up for a number of years.
Yeah, and they wasn't working, which I found out too for a while, and you had to take it down and put it back
And-
up. I'm looking at one all the time.
And we've had what they call LiDAR data. What happens when you put up a Met tower within relative proximity to a second one, they track the performance of the 2 towers, okay? So if we're getting, pick a number, 7 meter per second on this one and 7.1 meter per second in this hour, this time of day, and if that becomes very consistent, then even with 90 and 120 days, you can start to get a good profile of the difference between the 2 sites.
Okay, now I have a problem with the existing Joseph Kraft. Can you tell us about Joseph Kraft and this money with him and the SEC, they banned him from being a director of a company, and he signed this agreement with you guys to convert all that, him and Rex, and he's, well, tell us about the financial part
Let
about
me
that.
tell you what I know.
Okay.
Joseph Kraft has no interest in this project going forward.
Now,
He 100% released his
now how do I
interest.
believe, how can I believe that, man?
You
know, and all this dirty money that come through, who laundered all that when he come down here? Well, I mean, you know,
And
so all these
unfortunately,
leases and
what-
stuff, was that all dirty money or what?
Mr. Chairman,
Tom,
Are we-
I'm sorry.
let the
Yeah,
gentleman
let
talk.
me go ahead and finish. He has no interest. I have had no involvement with anything he did prior. And I can tell you that when we dispersed money to his part of the company, none of it went to Joe Kraft. It went to creditors. You're right. They had some real problems. And, but at the end of the day, as far as I'm aware, Joe Kraft did not get a nickel.
That still doesn't, as far as all the money that went into it, that was,
Yeah, and I wish I had a better answer.
and
but
so I wonder about the validity of the whole transferring of the conditional use permit for them. I really do. And they didn't want him to be an officer, and there it is, CEO. For 5 years, the SEC banned him. And so he signed this over to you. So evidently he had some kind of interest in it. But yeah, he didn't get any money. Another thing is, well, I live in the Flint Hills, and for those that don't believe, I said go to Upland and 130th and look around. Now, I'm reasonably sure that you're going to say, well, south of 50 and east of 77, because that was a moratorium that set in from by Governor Brownback. But I'm in there, in the Flint Hills, and you can look and see, and I am. And I kind of wonder why they're even considering developing industrial complexes in the Flint Hills, which comprise a majority of the last remaining 3% of virgin tall grass prairie. The Flint Hills are renowned for their beauty of uninterrupted vistas of grasslands that stretch off into the horizons, uncluttered with industrial developments. How can the constructive wind turbine complex and the resulting turbines that would crowd the horizon with machines that tower to 450 feet possibly fit into this ecosystem? There's some legal issues. Energy experts also contend that if not for the tax subsidies, tax incentives, rapid depreciation schedules, and capital gains benefit for the investors of wind complexes, there would be very little money in wind energy. Can the developers really state that wind energy can pay for its own and be cost efficient? The developers, let's see here. Property proponents claim that complexes will not hurt property values. Yet in the last couple of months there have been at least a half a dozen potential buyers of Flint Hills property that have contacted the Protect the Flint Hills organization to ask if wind complexes were scheduled for a particular area. Without exception, the potential buyer said if a wind complex was scheduled for that area, they would not, capitalize not, be interested in purchasing the land. Are the developers willing to put up some type of insurance to compensate adjacent landowners for a decline in their property values? And that's, I've got many more, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, could I make one comment?
Okay.
The original project did have property in the Flint Hills. After our due diligence, we chose not to acquire any of those assets. We have no development assets, leases in the Flint Hills area.
Well, you do if it's where I live.
And we'll
I'm a-
certainly clear up the footprint when we apply for the CUP. I think they're finalizing.
And I will remind all you that are here, there's going to be a public hearing on this, and that they'll allow time, the way I understand it, for you to make your comments at the public hearing, which will encompass, I'm sure, a lot more folks than what we've got here today.
I'm sorry, Ken, I got a little passionate.
So anyway, just to reiterate that, is at this point we need to move on, and we thank you for bringing us information.
Okay.
thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. I'll pass them down.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And make sure Tina has those.
Okay.
Good to meet you.
Is that, you have a card?
You know, not on the, BOTH, yes.
Who has a card?
Okay,
I,
any public comment before we move on?
Did I talk to you on the phone?
Sharon? Okay.
Yeah.
because I've worked with Pat Hughes,
Sure.
Oh, sure.
so he'll say.
Contact you once.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
You want it to be written
I was
down?
gonna say
That's
that.
well, so it's
Yeah.
Patricia.
Yeah.
for Pat.
Let's
Well, I
double
can
check,
say Patricia, but I go by,
What time do you take lunch?
I should have gone with Trish.
I changed mine in college.
At a university.
I think we're gonna be staying here for a little longer, so,
My name is Patricia.
so I can come
I
pick
don't
up some
wanna
of my
be called
documents.
Pat
If you
like
take lunch,
that,
would you
but
drop them off here?
I don't wanna be called Patty, because that's a piece of candy. I don't want nicknames at all, and then what did you do? Give everyone this stupid, really stupid.
So, if you have them at the end of the day, you can email them to me. If you could do that, would that be easier?
Possibly, yes. I'll see what I can do. And Brandon's sick today, so I
I
will,
know.
I'll do what I can. Do you have any other questions for me before I
Where are you? My question to you would be, where are you at right now? Are you comfortable with everything? What's going on? I mean,
Until they officially submit a CUP application, there's not much that I can do.
there's gotta be, you gotta have such and such information for that, so.
Yeah, and once they submit it, then I'll go through and look and make sure that they have submitted everything that our regulations require. And then we'll start that public notice process.
And Sharon, I will also ask you, you have a couple of new board members on the board, and they have none of your regulations under their belt yet. To even, and then this is gonna come before them, and so I think it's pertinent that they get some of those regulations.
Stop by and pick up that binder. You
I
want-
did. Could I do that now? I'm on my way out or something? I could pick that up.
Yeah, it's still sitting there. So
Okay.
it's ready to go.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'll do that. And if you're at lunch, where can I get it?
How about if I just bring it back over and leave it in the clerk's?
Okay, that'll be fine. And that's just for the commission. That's for a new member on the board, and he has no idea what regulations that are, so he wants some time to read what he's faced with.
Okay, moving on. Anything public input? If not, we're gonna move on. We're gonna take some time to discuss a job description for engineer.
Commission, I'm just asking you, this job description, if we go back to the one we were just talking about there, and entitle some of the duties of our road supervisor right now, do we need to go into executive session to?
It depends upon if you're going to discuss the, in terms of current code supervisor, current personnel, and elements of that in some fashion, you can allude to specific individual, but yes.
I don't think we're ready to get that far yet.
Well, what I'm
We would need
saying,
to know the structure too of the position and whether, if that changes, if they're gonna simultaneous, like, in some of the counties, they co-manage the department. In some of the counties, the engineer is above the road supervisor. So those kind of things, you're gonna probably need to, we need to know what the structure is gonna be. Of
The
the
hierarchy.
Yeah, because, who enters it, that's right.
that's my concern, because we put this out like some of them are. It's gonna,